Chapter 1354. 10. 10 times? But. Zhao Shimu was dumbfounded. He stammered for a long time without being able to say anything. How many spiritual crystals did he spend to hire Guan Weikai? Yes, 10 times. At that time, the Zhao family rented Guan Weikai for 1,000 spiritual crystals. So now, you have to pay 10 times that amount. That's a total of 10,000 spiritual crystals. Take a look at the terms yourself. Lu Huaishui said calmly as he pointed at the clause that he had marked out. Zhao Shimu's face turned red. He looked like a goose that had been strangled by the neck. He lowered his head and read the terms on the contract. When Zhao Shimu was signing the contract, he was fooled by the salesperson who had come to do the promotion. He only knew that he would be able to take advantage of the contract if he signed it. He did not read the content of the contract carefully. Now that he had read the clause that had been marked out, he immediately regretted it. What? 10,000 spiritual crystals. While Zhao Shimu was cursing his bad luck, Zhao Xingxuan could not take it anymore. He slammed the table and shouted angrily, outrageous. Brother Guan was obviously beaten to death by the Qin family. Instead of looking for trouble with them, why are you asking us for compensation? Furthermore, you are asking us for so many spiritual crystals. Do you really think that the Zhao family is weak and can be bullied easily? After threatening Lu Huaishui, Zhao Xingxuan crushed the cup in his hand into powder. He immediately revealed his cultivation of level 6 of the Golden Core stage. He stared coldly at Lu Huaishui like a lion that was about to devour its prey. Hee, old Mr. Zhao, don't we all come out to do business for money? Why do we have to hurt each other's friendship for a few spiritual crystals? Lu Huaishui said calmly, as if he did not feel Zhao Xingxuan's killing intent. He stared at the mahogany table in front of him without moving an inch. Zhao Xingxuan thought that Lu Huaishui lowered his head because he did not dare to look at him. His aura rose and he said fiercely, cut the crap. Either you go to the Qin family and ask for the 10,000 spiritual crystals, or you leave this place immediately. Old Mr. Zhao, are you joking? Lu Huaishui finally raised his head and glanced at Zhao Xingxuan. A trace of hostility flashed between his brows. He snapped his fingers again and a disdainful smile appeared on his face. He slowly said, besides, do you really think that the Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce is afraid of a mere Zhao family? As soon as he finished speaking, the two bodyguards behind Lu Huaishui immediately rushed forward and stood in front of him. At the same time, their bodies trembled and a majestic yuan qi covered their bodies. One of them was an expert at the Golden Core stage and the other had already reached the half-step nascent soul stage. Feeling the ferocious pressure pressing down on him like a towering mountain, Zhao Xingxuan's expression changed drastically. Only now did he realize that he had underestimated the other party's strength. Seeing that the situation was so unfavorable to him, Zhao Xingxuan did not dare to act rashly. He could only clench his fists in hatred, snort coldly and grit his teeth as he took a step back. Director Lu, let's talk this over. Cold sweat dripped down Zhao Shimu's forehead as he explained with difficulty, it's not that the Zhao family is unwilling to compensate, but 10,000 spirit crystals is too much. Furthermore, our great-uncle was right. Senior Guan was indeed killed by Shao Chang. You can investigate this matter and find out. You can't just punish us and let the culprit go, right? Zhao Shimu's expression was very helpless. After all, the Zhao family's annual income was only 20,000 to 30,000 spirit crystals. They would have to fork out more than half of that. Not only would they be strapped for cash, but the living expenses of this large family would also be a problem. The two of you don't have to be so afraid. I haven't finished speaking. Seeing Zhao Xingxuan and Zhao Shimu's fierce and then timid expressions, Lu Huaishui was very pleased. He smiled and said, Mr. Zhao, I guess you didn't read the additional terms in the contract, right? I really didn't read it. Zhao Shimu hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. He felt uneasy. Could it be that the additional terms required more compensation? That's right. Lu Huaishui had a subtle smile on his face as he deliberately paused for a moment. When Zhao Xingxuan and Zhao Shimu were at their most nervous, he slowly said, the additional terms mentioned that if the expert rented by Party A is killed by someone else due to his lack of strength, then Party A only needs to pay 50% of the compensation, and the rest will be paid by the killer. So, the Zhao family only needs to pay 5,000 spirit crystals. Zhao Shimu couldn't be bothered to reprimand Lu Huaishui, who was smiling like a clown. He grabbed the contract on the table and immediately flipped through it. On the last page of the contract, Zhao Shimu found this clause. He finally let out a long breath and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Turning his head to look at Zhao Xingxuan, Zhao Shimu saw him nod slightly. Zhao Shimu then nodded to Lu Huaishui and said, since the contract is as such, the Zhao clan is willing to compensate for this loss. At the same time, I hope that you can send another person to replace Senior Guan. If it's a nascent soul cultivator, that would be the best. Although 5,000 spirit crystals was a large sum for the Zhao family, under the current situation, Zhao Shimu couldn't bargain with them anymore. After all, the Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce was an existence that the Zhao family couldn't afford to offend. Zhao Shimu couldn't ask for more than 5,000 spirit crystals to settle this matter and disgust the Qin family. Since they had reached an agreement, Zhao Shimu didn't procrastinate anymore. He decisively asked someone to prepare the spirit crystals and handed them over with both hands. After Lu Huaishui confirmed the number of spirit crystals, he threw them to the bodyguard and stood up to extend his hand. He put on a sincere smile and said, Mr. Zhao is indeed straightforward. It's also an honor for our Chamber of Commerce to be able to work closely with the Zhao family. Director Lu, you're too kind. Zhao Shimu watched as the 5,000 spirit crystals fell into the bodyguard's bag. Although he felt his heart ache, he still forced himself to put on a warm attitude and awkwardly shook Lu Huaishui's hand. Lu Huaishui put down Zhao Shimu's hand and said with a warm expression, as for Guan Weicai's sect, I will think of a way to help you deal with it. This is also the obligation of the second party in our contract, so you don't have to worry about this for the time being. Thank you so much. Zhao Shimu's voice finally sounded a little happier this time, and the smile on his face was more sincere. Then, about sending reinforcements, Lu Huaishui adjusted his collar and turned to look out the door. Right now, we still have to go to the Qin family to ask for compensation and terminate this contract. It won't be too late to discuss sending reinforcements later. Chapter 1355. Yes, yes, yes. Director Lu is right. I will immediately bring you to the Qin family to ask for an explanation. This time, they must pay the price. Zhao Shimu nodded repeatedly. He did not dare to delay and took a few steps forward. Then, he suddenly thought of something and turned to look at Zhao Xingxuan. Great-grandfather, why don't you wait in the house first? Director Lu and I will be back soon. I will report the situation to you then. Alright, you guys go. I'm going back to cultivate. Zhao Xingxuan waved his hand disinterestedly. He, who had just lost face in front of Lu Huaishui, was naturally not interested in going with them. He responded casually and left in a huff. When Zhao Shimu, Lu Huaishui, and the others had just stepped out of the Zhao family's main gate, Qin Xingling and Xiao Chen were in the Qin family's guest hall, listening to the information that their subordinates had sent back from different places. Although the Qin family had already deployed people in a few small towns nearby, no matter how much they asked, they could not find the whereabouts of Qing Menjing and the others. The news that came back made Xiao Chen a little disappointed. He did not know where they were in the vast immortal cultivation world, nor did he know where to start looking. Immortal Xiao, why don't I get them to go to Luxian Prefecture to ask around? After listening to everyone's reports, Qin Xingling frowned and asked in a low voice, after all, there are many people there. There will be more merchants coming and going. Who knows, maybe we can find out the whereabouts of your friends. What do you think? Whenever he thought about how Xiao Cheng had done so much for the Qin family, but he could not even do such a small thing as find them, Qin Xingling felt very guilty. Xiao Chen thought for a while, nodded, and said somewhat helplessly, all right, that's all we can do. Thank you, old Master Qin. I did not expect that I would cause so much trouble for you after only coming to Yanlin town for a few days. I feel quite bad about it. Immortal Xiao, you are treating me like an outsider. To be able to do things for Immortal Xiao, it is a supreme honor for the Qin family. Qin Xingling waved his hand and said gratefully, moreover, you helped us deal with the Zhao family. The Qin family's income has increased several times compared to previous years. We should be thanking you. Due to Zhao Wendang making a ruckus at the Qin clan last time, not only did he not succeed in extorting them, he even allowed Xiao Chen to take the opportunity to ridicule him and flee with his tail between his legs. These matters were witnessed by the people and merchants of Yanlin town, to the extent that many merchants believed that the Zhao clan was already at its end, and they decisively threw out an olive branch to the Qin clan one after another. Old Patriarch Qin, you flatter me. Xiao Chen said modestly. Then, he touched his nose in puzzlement and asked, by the way, where has Tao Tian been these days? Could it be that he was also sent to other places to look for people? Ever since he killed the people from the Zhao family, Xiao Chen had not seen any trace of Qin Tao Tian for a long time. Originally, this kid had always surrounded him and tried to please him. Now that he was suddenly gone, Xiao Chen could not help but feel a little unaccustomed. Not really. Qin Xingling shook his head and explained with a smile, it's like this. Recently, a lot of merchants have come to our Qin clan to cooperate. I thought that Tao Tian's father has not fully recovered, and he may not have the energy to deal with people. Since Tao Tian will take over the Qin clan's business sooner or later, I simply let him talk to those merchants first and gain experience at the same time. Xiao Chen nodded in understanding. Just as he was about to praise him, a servant suddenly ran in from outside in a hurry. The two of them turned their heads and saw that the servant hurriedly saluted. He lowered his head and said carefully, Master, Zhao Shimu, the head of the Zhao clan, is now outside the gate. He said that he wants to see you by name, and he has brought a few strangers with him. They look aggressive and seem to want to harm our Qin clan. Pa! Qin Xingling slammed the table heavily and stood up from the chair. He said angrily, why is it this kid again? Hasn't he learned enough from the lesson from the past few days? He actually dares to bring people to cause trouble. Isn't he looking down on our Qin clan too much? Old master, there's no need to be too angry. Since Zhao Shimu wants to court death, let's go out and meet him. Xiao Chen stood up and stretched. He grinned and said, I'm quite curious to know what tricks he plans to play this time. From Xiao Chen's point of view, this Zhao clan was a bunch of people who did not learn their lesson. He might as well get rid of them all at once this time, lest they come to cause trouble for the Qin clan every now and then. Ha ha ha. Xiao Cheng, although you're young, I didn't expect you to be so arrogant. Do you really think that our Zhao clan can't do anything to you? Before Xiao Chen and Qin Xingling could leave the guest hall, a voice suddenly rang out from outside the door. With a mocking voice, Zhao Shimu swaggered in with Director Lu and the rest. Zhao Shimu, who was walking at the front, pushed away the servant who was blocking the way. Caught off guard, the servant was pushed back a few steps and fell to the ground. However, he also knew that the Zhao family had always been overbearing, so he didn't dare to have any complaints. He could only endure the pain and climb up, standing obediently on the side. Zhao Shimu led Lu Huaishui into the hall and then casually sat in the guest seat. Lu Huaishui sat in the main seat and leisurely crossed his legs. He narrowed his eyes and scanned everyone present. Who allowed you to? Qin Xingling was about to explode in anger when he was interrupted by Lu Huaishui. Mr. Zhao, was Guan Weikai killed by this kid? Lu Huaishui's gaze finally stopped on Xiao Chen. A trace of viciousness flashed in his eyes. That's right. Zhao Shimu pointed at Xiao Chen and introduced him seriously. Don't be fooled by his young age. His attacks were extremely vicious. He killed Senior Guan without asking any questions. He used a strange spell to kill Senior Guan. We couldn't stop him in time. Zhao Shimu. What's wrong with you? How dare you come to our house and spout nonsense? Is Exalted Immortal Xiao someone you can insult? Before Xiao Chen could speak, Qin Xingling jumped up and shouted at Zhao Shimu. Zhao Shimu glanced at Qin Xingling. His eyes were filled with pride. He smiled coldly and added, however, as far as I know, Xiao Chang is only a watchdog hired by the Qin clan. Qin Xingling, that old thing, is the real mastermind. Director Lu, don't let him off. If that's the case, things will be easy. Lu Huaishui raised his eyebrows and slammed the contract on the table. Chapter 1356. Qin Xingling had been glaring at Zhao Shimu, but when he heard Lu Huaishui's words, he turned to look at him. He wanted to see what this weirdly dressed man had to say. Xiao Chen stood behind Qin Xingling, not in a hurry to speak. He looked at the people in front of him with great interest. He took a few more glances at Lu Huaishui's clothes, feeling that they looked familiar. Lu Huaishui ignored Xiao Chen's stare. Instead, he picked his ear with his left pinky and said calmly, according to the terms of the contract, if an employee of the Chamber of Commerce is killed due to personal grudges, the employer and the killer will each have to pay half of the compensation as compensation to the Chamber of Commerce. The Zhao family has already paid them. You can pay the rest. Ridiculous. Qin Xingling clenched his fists, and a few veins popped on his forehead. He stared coldly at Director Lu and Zhao Shimu and said angrily, it was Zhao Shimu who provoked the Qin family first. That Guan guy was too weak, so he was killed by exalted deity Shao. Why should I pay for the losses? This is simply ridiculous and preposterous. Old man Qin, I think you've lived so long in vain. Zhao Shimu stood up and walked to Lu Huaishui's side. He pointed at Qin Xingling angrily and said, a life for a life, a debt for a life. This is a matter of course. Don't you understand such a simple principle? Lu Huaishui was getting a little impatient. He stretched out his index finger and poked the contract a few times. He glanced sideways at Qin Xingling and said, old man, the contract is written very clearly. Please open your presbyopic eyes and take a good look. It's okay if you can't read or understand the content. All you need to know is that you have to pay 5,000 spirit crystals. Nonsense. Why should I pay the spirit crystals? That surnamed Guan was obviously invited by the Zhao family. If anyone is going to compensate, it should be the Zhao family. Qin Xingling's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets as he roared in anger. Old man, let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't take good care of yourself, your eyesight will deteriorate and your hearing will deteriorate. Lu Huaishui rolled his eyes and said angrily, I've already said that the Zhao family has paid the compensation. Now it's your turn. Exactly. It's already kind of me to ask the Qin family to pay some spiritual crystals. Zhao Shimu said sarcastically, if you anger the Chamber of Commerce or the force behind Senior Guan, it's not something that can be solved with just a few spiritual crystals. Your entire Qin clan will disappear from the world of cultivators in an instant. Let me give you a piece of advice out of goodwill. Stop talking nonsense and hurry up and pay up. At this time, Zhao Shimu was standing beside Lu Huaishui, showing off his prowess. He seemed to have completely forgotten that he and Granduncle Zhao were trembling and bowing in front of Lu Huaishui just now. However, it might also be because of this humiliation that Zhao Shimu planned to make up for it with Qin Xingling. You! Qin Xingling was so angry that his eyes were wide open. Just as he was about to teach Zhao Shimu a lesson, he suddenly felt someone patting his shoulder. He turned around and saw Xiao Chen smiling and saying softly to him, Old Master Qin, please calm down. I'm quite interested in this contract. Let me take a look first. After saying that, Xiao Chen took a few steps forward, reached out to take the contract on the table and flipped through it. Although Qin Xingling was still very angry in his heart, since Immortal Xiao had said so, he could only suppress his anger for the time being. After all, he knew that he did not understand this aspect at all. He also knew that the Zhao family must have come prepared this time. Therefore, he could only wait patiently for Xiao Chen to finish reading the contract. Staring at the contract in his hand, he repeatedly read it a few times. The more Xiao Chen looked at it, the more he felt that it was inexplicable. This contract was actually made according to the standards of the secular world. Not only did it include Party A and Party B, but it also included the responsibilities and obligations that both parties had to bear, as well as the penalties for breach of contract. There was also the date of signing and the signatures of all parties. It looked very proper and very formal. However, after reading it back and forth a few times, Xiaoqun found that there were many overbearing clauses in it. The entire contract was very beneficial to the Chamber of Commerce. It could even be said that the benefits were completely skewed. Glancing at the arrogant Zhao Shimu, Xiaoqun pursed his lips. This kind of contract that was commonly seen in the secular world was indeed very new in the world of immortal cultivation. These people naturally did not understand the mystery behind it. It seemed that the group of idiots from the Zhao family had also been deceived. But, why would such a secular contract appear in the world of immortal cultivation? Xiaoqun had extremely strong doubts in his heart. However, before he could ask, Lu Huaishui attacked first. May I ask if you have finished reading it? Lu Huaishui stared at Xiaoqun, who was constantly flipping through the contract. He frowned and urged, "Do you see the agreements that I have underlined? Please pay us 5,000 spirit crystals according to the agreement in the contract." What the hell did you write? Xiaoqun collected his thoughts and pinched the corner of the contract with his hand. He shook it a few times and said disdainfully, "This contract only has legal effect on the two parties who signed it. The Qin family did not sign or put their stamp on the contract, so they did not establish a labor relationship with you at all. What the hell are you giving it to us for?" Who said that? Lu Huaishui was stunned and subconsciously argued, "It is written that if the hired cultivator is killed, the killer and the employer will have to pay half of the compensation. I'll compensate you, my ass. This contract has nothing to do with us. Don't try to fool us." Xiaoqun snorted coldly. He raised his index finger and shook it slightly. Immediately, a cluster of red dancing flames leaped up from his fingertip. Lu Huaishui was shocked when he saw Xiaoqun's action. He was about to say something to stop him, but it was too late. He saw that Xiaoqun had casually set the contract in his hand on fire. The thin pieces of paper instantly turned into ashes. What the hell? How dare you burn the contract? Lu Huaishui was furious. He immediately jumped up from his chair and pointed at Xiaoqun, shouting, "Are you crazy? Do you want the experts of our Chamber of Commerce to set your bones?" As he roared, Lu Huaishui signaled the two bodyguards behind him with his eyes. When the two bodyguards received the signal, they immediately flipped the table in front of them and rushed forward. They revealed their cultivation and confronted Xiaoqun in an overbearing manner. As long as they waited for Lu Huaishui's order, they planned to directly break the neck of the fair-skinned boy in front of them. However, Xiaoqun didn't take the threats of the two bodyguards seriously at all. He casually dusted off the paper in his hand, glanced at Lu Huaishui, and coldly asked, "Also, what is this to the Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce of Party B on the contract?" Chapter 1357. Hearing Xiaoqun's question, Lu Huaishui immediately straightened his chest and said proudly, "This is the name of our Chamber of Commerce. Our Chamber of Commerce has branches all over the world, and our business covers." Before Lu Huaishui finished speaking, Xiaoqun immediately interrupted him and asked, "If that's the case, may I ask who the legal representative of your Chamber of Commerce is? Does it have a business license? Has it been recorded in the Bureau of Industry and Commerce? If not, you are a fake company, and you have to bear legal responsibility, you know?" What legal representative? Lu Huaishui blinked his eyes in confusion. He had no idea what Xiaoqun was talking about. Lu Huaishui himself was also a person from the immortal cultivation world. After entering the Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce, he went through systematic training, so he could fool people when he went out to do business. As a result, he didn't expect to meet a weirdo like Xiaoqun today. The terms he used seemed to be more professional than him. Lu Huaishui was completely confused. F***ck, you don't even know the legal representative, and you dare to open such a big company? It seems that your boss is quite bold. Xiaoqun exclaimed. He couldn't help but feel angry and funny at the same time. When he saw the contract just now, Xiao Chen was thinking about it. The name seemed to be similar to a certain taxi-hailing software in the secular world. After all, such a strange name could only be known by people in the secular world. Since it could spread in the immortal cultivation world, the behind-the-scenes boss of this company must be from the secular world. However, thinking of this, Xiao Chen was a little puzzled. Judging from this formal contract and the introduction of Director Lu just now, this the Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce should have been established for some years. It didn't seem like it was established by people who had just entered the immortal cultivation world. Xiao Chen remembered that among the people who entered the immortal cultivation world with him, the immortal cultivation sect and the ghost cultivation sect were in the martial arts world. They didn't know about the taxi-hailing software at all. Only Qing Menjing and the other women from the secular world and Yu Shaochuan would know about it. However, they were the same as him. They had just entered the immortal cultivation world not long ago. How could they establish such a strange chamber of commerce? If he were to speculate further, Shishan Giant Ox had come in before, but judging from his attitude towards him later, he probably didn't mix well in the immortal cultivation world, so he shouldn't have done it. Could it be Situ Qitian who had destroyed the teleportation formation? This old fellow didn't seem to have the ability to do so. Xiao Chen thought about it and couldn't help but be puzzled. He wanted to probe this Director Lu in front of him with a few words, but this guy seemed to have no concept of some professional terms in the secular world. Apart from knowing the contract and wearing the uniform, it seemed that he didn't know any more in-depth content. He wanted to ask a few more questions, but Xiao Chen was somewhat hesitant. This the Immortal Cultivator's Chamber of Commerce seemed to be quite large. He had just entered the immortal cultivation world, so he didn't know whether the other party was a friend or a foe. If he revealed that he was from the secular world too early, he might attract the attention of people with ulterior motives. Originally, Xiao Chen planned to keep a low profile for a while and gradually explore the mystery of the immortal cultivation world. If he followed this clue, it would be easy to alert the enemy. While Xiao Chen was thinking intensely in his mind, Lu Huaishui waved his hand impatiently and said, "Okay, don't talk about those useless things. Your Qin family should give me a straightforward answer today. Do you want to compensate for the spirit crystals or not? Compensate your mother. A chamber of commerce without a legal person doesn't have any legal effect at all. Are you here to be funny?" Xiao Chen had already made a decision at this time. For the time being, he would not explore the inside story behind this the Immortal Cultivator's Chamber of Commerce. Hearing Lu Huaishui's words, he directly asked with a cold face. "I don't know what you mean by legal effect, but now it seems that your Qin family is not going to compensate, right?" Lu Huaishui was confused by Xiao Chen's professional jargon. He could not be bothered to think about it anymore, so he asked straightforwardly. Xiao Chen spread out his hands and answered Lu Huaishui with silence. "Very well, since you don't want face, then don't blame me for not being polite." Lu Huaishui's face darkened. He turned to the two bodyguards and instructed, "You two, go and cripple that brat who talks nonsense and that old thing from the Qin family. Then, go and collect 5,000 spirit crystals. Watch out." The two bodyguards immediately shouted and rushed towards Xiao Chen and Qin Xingling. Before Lu Huaishui came to the Qin family, he had already understood the situation from Zhao Shimu. He knew that the Qin family's master, Qin Xingling, was only at the peak of the foundation establishment stage, while Xiao Chen was said to be slightly stronger. Therefore, he had arranged the division of labor in advance. The bodyguard at the peak of the Golden Core stage was responsible for dealing with Qin Xingling, while the other one who was half a step into the original infant stage was responsible for attacking Xiao Chen. When Qin Xingling saw the two of them suddenly attacking him, his expression changed. He wasn't sure how strong Exalted Immortal Xiao was, so he could only retreat a few steps in a hurry. When Qin Xingling turned his head to look, he saw that Exalted Immortal Xiao was still smiling. He stood motionless in the same spot, looking very relaxed. He couldn't help but turn pale with fright. He thought to himself, what's going on with Exalted Immortal Xiao? Could it be that he already has a way to deal with it? When Zhao Shimu saw this scene, he laughed coldly. From his point of view, Xiao Cheng was so afraid that he couldn't even move. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't deal with two cultivators at the peak of the golden core stage at the same time. Moreover, one of them was half a step into the original infant stage. Actually, this time, Zhao Shimu had the intention of killing with a borrowed knife. He hoped that the Qin family wouldn't be willing to pay the spirit crystals. If they paid the spirit crystals obediently, they would only be injured for a while. They would recover after a period of rest. If they didn't pay, then the Chamber of Commerce of Immortal Cultivators was not to be trifled with. Regardless of whether it was Xiao Cheng or Qin Xingling, as long as one of them was seriously injured or died, the Qin family would be finished. However, in the next moment, the smile on Zhao Shimu's face froze. His expression also became distorted. This was because everything that had happened in front of him had changed too quickly. He couldn't react at all. The two bodyguards who were pouncing towards Xiao Cheng and Qin Xingling suddenly paused in midair. Then, they turned around to face each other. The bodyguard at the peak of the golden core stage suddenly attacked and punched the other bodyguard. At the same time, the bodyguard who was half a step into the original infant stage heavily slapped him with his palm. After each of them suffered a blow, the two of them didn't stop. They continued to fight each other, inexplicably killing each other. Bang, bang. Two muffled sounds could be heard. The peak of the golden core stage bodyguard's lower abdomen was hit by a vicious palm. The bodyguard who was half a step into the original infant stage's chest was hit by a solid punch. The two of them were sent flying a few feet away by the strong impact. They landed heavily on the ground and both spat out a mouthful of blood. Their faces were ashen. Chapter 1358. Lu Huaishui was also dumbfounded. It took him a long time to come to his senses. He was so angry that he jumped up and down. Pointing at them, he scolded, "What the hell are you doing? I asked you to beat up the people of the Qin family. Why did you kill each other?" I don't know. Just now, I suddenly felt that my body was out of control, so I hit them. Me too. Just now, I felt that my head was in a mess. I can't remember what happened. The two bodyguards propped themselves up and looked at each other in confusion. It was difficult for them to describe the situation just now, but because it was the first time they had encountered such a situation, they didn't know how to explain it for a while. "Lu, you brought these two idiots to the Qin family. First, you asked us to see the *T contract that had nothing to do with it. Now, you asked them to put on a farce of killing each other in front of us. What do you mean? Do you want us to give you a reward or something?" Xiao Chen sneered with his arms crossed. At first, Xiao Chen wasn't sure if he could use his mental strength to control cultivators. However, after experimenting, it was obvious that this method was feasible. He felt relieved. It seemed that he would have another life-saving skill in the world of cultivators in the future. Lu Huaishui was rendered speechless by Xiao Chen's words. He had no idea why his two bodyguards had suddenly started fighting each other. Now that they were both seriously injured, they probably couldn't do anything to the Qin family anymore. "What do you mean by this and that? Isn't it written in the contract that you are the director of the marketing department? Didn't your boss teach you to speak clearly when you are running a business? You can't stammer, right? Otherwise, you will leave a bad impression on the customers." Xiao Chen interrupted him impatiently. "All right, do you have anything else to say or not? If not, just get out of here." How could Lu Huaishui be willing to leave? His mind spun quickly. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as if he had recalled something. He hurriedly said, "Although the Qin family didn't sign an official contract with the Chamber of Commerce, Guan Weikai was killed by you. You have to bear secondary responsibility. So, you still have to pay the Chamber of Commerce 5,000 crystals as compensation." After saying that, Lu Huaishui secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He recalled that on the first day he entered the Cultivation Chamber of Commerce, he had participated in an eloquence training. One of the lessons talked about the difference between primary and secondary responsibilities. At that time, he didn't pay much attention to it, but he didn't expect it to come in handy today. Since you know we didn't sign the contract, why are you asking us to take responsibility? Xiaochen glared at Lu Huaishui and said angrily, "Where on earth did you learn this nonsense? If you really think that we are responsible, then go to court and sue me." At this point, Xiaochen couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with this half-baked guy anymore. After casually ordering his men to send the guest off, he turned around and planned to leave the living room. Wait. Seeing that Xiaochen was in a hurry to leave, Lu Huaishui thought that he was trying to escape and immediately stepped forward to stop him. "Is there anything else? Why are you so troublesome?" Xiaochen's patience was almost worn out. Although Lu Huaishui didn't know what the court that Xiaochen mentioned was, he still gritted his teeth and threatened him. "Do you know what will happen to you if you offend the Cultivation Chamber of Commerce?" "Oh, I don't know, and I don't want to know." Xiaochen shook his head. It seemed that Lu Huaishui was used to living a comfortable life and couldn't even see the situation in front of him clearly. Seeing that Xiaochen was so stubborn, Lu Huaishui felt a headache coming on. He grabbed Xiaochen's clothes and said fiercely, "If the Qin family doesn't take out 10,000 spirit crystals as compensation today, don't even think about having a good life in the future. Say, is your head pierced?" Xiaochen looked at Lu Huaishui with an inexplicable expression and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Just now, you said that you would pay 5,000 crystals, and in the blink of an eye, you raised it to 10,000 crystals. It seems that the business of your Cultivation Chamber of Commerce is quite good. No wonder you opened such a big business." While Xiaochen ridiculed him, he thought, "Is this how the Cultivation Chamber of Commerce makes money? The people in the world of cultivators are too stupid." "Humph. Of course, I'm not talking nonsense." Lu Huaishui sneered and immediately retorted, "My men were injured in the Qin family, so you have to pay 5,000 crystals for medical expenses. In addition to the compensation for killing Guan Weikai, it's a total of 10,000 crystals. I think you are the one with a bad brain. Don't you know the logic of 1 + 1 = 2? Lu Huaishui already knew that Xiaochen would ask this question, so he had already thought of an answer in advance. At this moment, he felt that he was very quick-witted. Xiaochen was not angry at all. Instead, he smiled warmly and stretched out his hand in front of Lu Huaishui. He said slowly, "I see. If you calculated according to your magical logic, then please give me 100,000 crystals as compensation." "Ha ha ha. Xiaocheng, are you crazy? Why should I give you so many crystals?" Lu Huaishui was stunned at first, then he couldn't help but laugh. He felt that Xiaochen was definitely a lunatic. He reckoned that something must have gone wrong when he was cultivating, causing him to go berserk and become like this. "It's simple, I'll calculate it for you." Xiaochen said calmly, "Just now, when you came in, you knocked over a servant of the Qin family for no reason. He was seriously injured because of this. Then, your men fought with each other and flipped over the tables and chairs of the Qin family. I rented these tables and chairs to the Qin family. Although I didn't sign a contract with you, you still have to bear responsibility. As for the compensation for losing my youth and framing, I won't settle it with you for now. So, don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and pay the crystals." As Xiaochen analyzed the situation to Lu Huaishui's face turned green and white. He was obviously angry. The servant who was knocked over was very smart. He was originally standing in the corner, but when he heard Xiaochen's words, he immediately fell to the ground. He held his stomach and shouted miserably, "Ouch, it hurts. I have an 80-year-old mother and a child waiting to be fed. After being kicked by you, I'm afraid I'll be bedridden. I won't be able to take care of them. TSK, TSK, TSK. Anyone who hears this will feel sad, and anyone who sees it will cry. This is too tragic." Xiaochen looked at that person with sympathy and then sighed helplessly. He turned to look at Lu Huaishui and said, "It seems that you have to pay more crystals." Chapter 1359. That servant's injuries are not light. I'm afraid he won't be able to work for the rest of his life. Although the Qin family is kind and generous and will definitely pay him a sum of money, you can't get away with it. Since it's a joint responsibility, you'll have to pay another 50,000 spiritual crystals. Xiao Chen said decisively. Don't act like a grandson. You were just standing there, and now you want to blackmail us? Do you really think I'm a fool? Lu Huaishui stomped his feet in anger. He pointed at Xiao Chen's nose and scolded, I'm not going to pay you. What can you do to me? Let me tell you, if you really piss me off, all of you will, Before Lu Huaishui could finish his sentence, Xiao Chen's hand, which was stretched out in front of him, suddenly changed its posture. He grabbed Lu Huaishui's neck and lifted him off the ground. Then, a faint wave of primordial qi gradually covered Xiao Chen's body. He stared at Lu Huaishui with a murderous look in his eyes and sneered, Say it, why don't you continue? I'd like to hear what you can do if I really piss you off. Ahem. Xiao Chen. I was just, joking, please let me go. I'll pay you the spiritual crystals, ahem. Director Lu coughed a few times and replied with difficulty as he felt a strong sense of suffocation. Feeling the pressure released by Xiao Chen, Lu Huaishui couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Although he still couldn't figure out Xiao Chen's cultivation level, the strong pressure made him unable to resist at all. If you said that earlier, there wouldn't have been so much trouble, right? Xiao Chen snorted. He loosened his fingers and threw Director Lu to the ground. Lu Huaishui lay on the ground and covered his neck with his hands. His face was pale and he took a few deep breaths. He felt as if he had come back from the brink of death. Xiao Chen looked down at Lu Huaishui and said calmly, I guess you don't have that many spiritual crystals on you. How about this, I'll give you 3 days to gather all the spiritual crystals and send them to the Qin family. Otherwise, I'll go find Zhao Shimu to settle the score. At that time, I'll ask for interest. After that, Xiao Chen ignored the horrified eyes of Lu Huaishui and turned to Qin Xingling and left the parlor with him. Although he had taught Lu Huaishui a harsh lesson, the doubts in Xiao Chen's heart only increased. Looking at the strength of the two bodyguards, one was at the peak of the gold core stage and the other was infinitely close to the nascent soul stage. Experts with such strength were actually only guards for someone. The background of this immortal cultivation chamber of commerce seemed to be extremely deep. Xiao Chen tried to ask Qin Xingling a few questions, but he realized that he did not know much about this chamber of commerce. He only knew that it was spread all over the immortal cultivation world and had many businesses. However, because the fees were more expensive, the Qin clan had never come into contact with it. After pondering for a long time, Xiao Chen decided to keep his doubts in his heart and keep a low profile for the time being. The most important thing right now was to find Xing Menjing and the others. As for the situation of the immortal cultivation chamber of commerce, he could only put it aside for the time being. Once he had a firm foothold in the immortal cultivation world, he would have time to inquire about it. At this time, Qin Xingling was extremely shocked. He felt that not only was Xiao Chang's strength profound, but he also knew everything. With a few words, he was able to refute that Director Lu to the point of being speechless. Qin Xingling worshipped him even more. In the parlor, Lu Huaishui glared angrily at Xiao Chen's back as he left. He gritted his teeth and stood up. In his heart, he thought to himself, Brat, this grudge between us is formed. What's so great about being stronger than me? Let's see how our Chamber of Commerce will deal with you later. Although he was angry, Lu Huaishui had no other way out. He could only leave the Qin family with his injured subordinates and Zhao Shimu. He planned to go back and report the situation to his superiors before thinking about the next step. After leaving the Qin family, Lu Huaishui was really angry. He directly reprimanded Zhao Shimu at the entrance of the Qin family's house. Then, he angrily walked in the direction of the Zhao family. This scene was seen by the surrounding people once again, causing the Zhao family's reputation to suffer another blow. It directly fell to the bottom. Although Zhao Shimu was sullen, there was nothing he could do. He could only sullenly follow Lu Huaishui back to the Zhao family and wait for him to call the higher-ups of the Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce for instructions. After Lu Huaishui arrived at the Zhao family, he did not delay any further. He immediately used the voice transmission talisman to call the higher-ups and briefly described what had happened today. He emphasized the words that Xiao Qin had said that he did not understand. The higher-ups of the Chamber of Commerce were also half-baked. After listening to the story, they were also very puzzled. They did not understand what Xiao Chang meant by the court and legal representative, nor did they understand why the two bodyguards would suddenly fight each other. They only expressed their shock at the situation that Lu Huaishui had encountered. At the moment, they could not think of a suitable solution. They could only helplessly order Director Lu to wait at the Chamber of Commerce branch in Lucian County. After they reported the situation to the higher-ups, they would wait for further instructions. While Lu Huaishui was reporting, Zhao Shimu had already told the whole story to Zhao Xingxuan, who had rushed over. Zhao Xingxuan was stunned and did not recover for a long time. How is this Xiao Chang so powerful? Even the bodyguards of the Chamber of Commerce can't do anything to him. After the report, Director Lu put away the remaining voice transmission talismans. Then, he stood up and solemnly warned Zhao Shimu, "Mr. Zhao, I have to go to the Chamber of Commerce branch in Lucian County first. Firstly, this is an order from the higher-ups. Secondly, I have to report the death of Guan Weicai's sect. I advise the Zhao family to be more obedient during this period of time. Don't rashly go against the Qin family." "Ah, you're leaving just like that?" Zhao Shimu was shocked. He hurriedly stopped Lu Huaishui and said, "But, Director Lu, if you leave just like that, what if Xiao Chang comes 3 days later to collect the debt? Why don't you send another expert to the Zhao family? Otherwise, our small family won't be able to deal with that guy." At this moment, Zhao Shimu could not help but feel extremely regretful. He originally wanted to use the power of the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce to uproot the Qin family. In the end, he did not expect that he would go for wool and come home shorn. Instead, his family was ruthlessly cheated. Furthermore, he had signed the contract in black and white, so he had no choice but to give it to him. "You make it sound so easy. In such a short time, where am I going to find help for you?" Lu Huaishui rolled his eyes and said unhappily, "Furthermore, I have only received a portion of Guan Weicai's compensation. The Chamber of Commerce will have to pay the rest themselves. Our Chamber of Commerce's spirit crystals do not fall from the sky." Chapter 1360. Actually, what Lu Huaishui was most concerned about was where he could get the other portion of the compensation. After all, the contract clearly stated that he had to get back 10,000 spiritual crystals. However, he was still short of half of it. If something went wrong and the higher-ups asked him to pay for it, Lu Huaishui would lose more than he gained. "Director Lu, why don't you help us think of another way? You see, we've already paid the 5,000 spiritual crystals. You can't just leave us like this." Zhao Shimu pleaded with a bitter face. Lu Huaishui's eyes turned and he suddenly thought of an idea. He glanced at Zhao Shimu and said, "Why don't you give me another 5,000 spiritual crystals? I'll think of a way to help you. Who knows, we might really be able to invite a more powerful expert over." "Lu, you really like to demand an exorbitant price." When Zhao Xingxuan, who was standing at the side with his hands behind his back, heard this, he couldn't help but curse angrily. "Your Chamber of Commerce can't even deal with a brat who hasn't even grown his hair. Not only did you cause the Zhao family to lose face in Yanlin town, but you still dare to ask us to pay 5,000 spiritual crystals. I think you've gone crazy thinking about the spiritual crystals, right? Hee, old thing, it's up to you whether you want to pay or not. At most, our Chamber of Commerce will pay for it ourselves. It's not like we can't afford it anyway." Lu Huaishui sneered and said in a strange tone, "But don't blame me for not reminding you. If Xiao Chang comes to collect the debt in 3 days, he won't be able to be dismissed with just a few thousand spiritual crystals. You better think about it carefully. Goodbye." After he finished speaking, Lu Huaishui waved his sleeves and strode out of the door with his 2 bodyguards. Director Lu, please wait. Please wait. Zhao Shimu's body trembled. He finally realized the seriousness of this problem from Lu Huaishui's words. He couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He immediately ran over to stop Lu Huaishui, who was about to reach the door. What else do you want? Don't tell me you want to get back the 5,000 spiritual crystals fine you just paid? Lu Huaishui stared at Zhao Shimu and mocked him. Director Lu, my great-grandfather is quite impatient, and his words are also very blunt. Please don't lower yourself to his level, Director Lu. Zhao Shimu did not dare to be angry at all. He said with a smile, I suddenly remembered that our Zhao family's rental service seemed to be for a year. It's not even a year yet. We can't just let it go, right? You don't have to worry about that. Our Chamber of Commerce will naturally continue to provide services before the end of the year. Director Lu straightened his sleeves and smiled as he stared at Zhao Shimu. His smile was like a spring breeze, as if he wasn't angry at all. That's good, that's good. Zhao Shimu nodded his head continuously. He finally felt relieved. But I've made it very clear today. Lu Huaishui changed the topic and said slowly, as long as you're willing to give me some more spirit crystals, I'll be able to explain it to my superiors when I get back. Things will naturally be smoother and the speed of sending people over will be faster. We won't have to wait 10 days or half a month to invite the next expert. What do you think? Zhao Shimu's expression changed several times, but he still couldn't make up his mind. Lu Huaishui was not anxious. He stood at the entrance of the Zhao family's house and looked around with interest. After thinking for a moment, Zhao Shimu finally gritted his teeth and nodded. All right. We'll do as you say. However, we have to do things according to the contract this time. You have to send an even more powerful person to our Zhao family. He has to be at least an original soul stage expert. This way, we can ensure that this expert can secretly investigate Xiao Chang's strength and also consolidate the Zhao family's position in Yanlin town. You don't have to worry about that. Lu Huaishui agreed immediately. Our De Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce has an extremely outstanding reputation in the industry. As long as it's a matter stipulated in the contract, we will definitely complete it according to the contract. There will definitely be no cases of breaking the contract. Seeing that Lu Huaishui had already said so, Zhao Shimu didn't want to delay any further. He personally ordered 5,000 spiritual crystals and handed them over to Lu Huaishui reluctantly. Although the compensation fee was much higher than expected, Zhao Shimu weighed the pros and cons in his heart. After spending these spiritual crystals, he would be able to earn them back one day. It was much better than being powerless when Xiao Chang came looking for him to settle the debt. He could only watch helplessly as the Zhao family was wiped out by Xiao Chang. Ha ha ha. Mr. Zhao is indeed an understanding person. After Lu Huaishui counted the number of spiritual crystals and confirmed that there were no mistakes, he patted Zhao Shimu's shoulder and smiled in satisfaction. When I return, I will first settle the procedures for Guan Weikai. Then, I will personally make a trip to the sect he is in. After settling this matter, I will immediately send him over to you. You can rest assured and wait for my good news. Looking at the backs of Lu Huaishui and his group leaving, Zhao Shimu's heart was also in a mess. He had always felt that Lu Huaishui was a strange person. He always used strange terms when he spoke and seemed rather unreliable. However, apart from the De Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce, he couldn't find a better backing. He could only hope that the Chamber of Commerce could give him another shot. Actually, Zhao Shimu was thinking too much. Although Lu Huaishui seemed to be sly and unreliable, he really valued the credibility of the Chamber of Commerce. He also didn't want to see the customers in his hands lose. Therefore, after returning to the Luxian Prefecture branch and settling the relevant matters, Lu Huaishui immediately brought his 2 subordinates and personally went to the secluded forest sect where Guan Weikai was. In the secluded forest sect's guest hall, a middle-aged man dressed in a long blue robe listened to Lu Huaishui's narration of the entire incident with a serious expression. His brows furrowed from time to time. When he heard that the two bodyguards of the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce had inexplicably attacked each other without knowing what had happened, the middle-aged man's face revealed an extremely astonished expression. It was obvious that he was quite fearful of Xiao Chen's strength. Sect Leader Guan, this is the basic situation. Our Chamber of Commerce also expresses its deep regret regarding the death of Senior Guan. After briefly explaining what had happened, Lu Huaishui took out a heavy bag and gently placed it on the table. Then, he pushed it towards the middle-aged man. This is? Sect Leader Guan glanced at the bag on the table. Although he had a rough idea of what it was, he still asked symbolically. This is the funeral compensation for Senior Guan Weikai. It is a total of 10,000 spiritual crystals. This is also a small token of our Chamber of Commerce. Please take a look. Lu Huaishui sat upright and explained without a change in his expression. Chapter 1361. According to what you said, Xiao Cheng should be quite powerful. After knowing that the bag contained spiritual crystals, Sect Leader Guan did not seem to care too much. He only nodded slightly and asked with a sullen face, has your Chamber of Commerce gotten hold of Xiao Cheng's information? Which sect is he from, and what is his relationship with the Qin family of Yanlin Town? For a mid-tier sect like the Tranquil Forest sect, although spirit crystals were a very important resource, mid-tier gold core stage experts were even more rare talents. The amount of money and resources needed to cultivate a gold core stage expert had already far exceeded these 10,000 spirit crystals. That was why Sect Leader Guan was so depressed and wanted to know the background of the murderer. We are still investigating. Lu Huaishui smiled sheepishly and said awkwardly, however, the other party's current attitude is very rude and unreasonable. It may affect the progress of the investigation. So this time, I am here to communicate with the secluded forest sect and see how we should handle this. What do you mean by that? Sect Leader Guan raised his eyebrows and looked at Lu Huaishui as he asked, isn't it the duty of the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce to investigate the other party's background? Why do you want to communicate with us? It's like this. Lu Huaishui explained unhurriedly, our Chamber of Commerce is deeply saddened by Senior Guan's passing and can understand the Tranquil Forest sect's eagerness to capture the murderer. Because we do not have many people now, if you hand it over to us to investigate, it may take more time. You mean, you want the Tranquil Forest sect to assist you in the investigation? Sect Leader Guan's mind was very sharp and he understood Lu Huaishui's intention immediately. If the Tranquil Forest sect is willing to send another expert, that would be the best. Lu Huaishui smiled and nodded. On one hand, he can go to the Zhao family and continue to serve as a priest and receive the remuneration he deserves. On the other hand, he can also assist our people to investigate Xiao Cheng's identity and background. I see. Sect Leader Guan rubbed his temples. After thinking for a moment, he slowly opened his mouth and said, how about this? I will send another golden core expert to the Zhao family to continue Guan Weicai's work. Lu Huaishui's expression changed slightly. When he was about to say something, Sect Leader Guan's expression suddenly turned serious. He stared at Lu Huaishui and added coldly, but your people can't stay idle. This time, you have to ensure his safety. If anything happens to our master, it won't be as simple as compensating the spiritual crystals. Sect Leader Guan, if I may be so bold as to say. I'm afraid an expert at the peak of the gold core stage is not qualified for this job. Lu Huaishui shook his head and said helplessly with a bitter face. Incompetent? Do you know what you're saying? Sect Master Guan thought that Lu Huaishui was trying to bargain and ask for a stronger person to be sent out. His face darkened and he felt a little displeased. To be honest, Sect Leader Guan, one of my two bodyguards is a master at the peak of the gold core stage, and the other has reached the realm of half a step to the Yuanying stage. Lu Huaishui's expression was a little bitter. You mean? Sect Leader Guan was stunned. His astonished gaze shifted to the two people standing behind Lu Huaishui. Although he was unwilling to admit it, Lu Huaishui still sighed and told the truth. Yes, the two of them suffered a loss at the hands of that Xiao Cheng. So, I suggest that you send someone more powerful, or else. Lu Huaishui did not finish his sentence. Instead, he smiled helplessly and made an expression that said, "You know what I mean." That's impossible, right? Even an immortal cultivator who is half a step to the yuanying stage is no match for him. Although sect leader Guan had a vague premonition in his heart, he was still very shocked when he heard Lu Huaishui admit it personally. He stared at the two bodyguards in a daze. Lu Huaishui did not say much. He directly gestured for the two bodyguards behind him to show their cultivation to prove to sect leader Guan that what he said was true. Sect leader Guan frowned. Suddenly, he recalled Director Lu's description and made a firm judgment. It seems that the person whom the Qin clan invited is at least an expert at the first level of the yuanying stage. Your minds must have been controlled by his mental strength. That's why you killed each other. The two bodyguards nodded their heads bitterly. After they left the Qin clan, they analyzed the situation and concluded that it should be so. After all, after reaching the yuanying stage, an immortal cultivator's mental strength would be very strong. Therefore, they would be controlled at the same time and act involuntarily. Sect leader Guan suddenly stood up and paced back and forth anxiously. His expression was a little grave. According to his understanding, there were not many yuanying stage experts in the Luxian prefecture. The sects that had such experts were even rarer. Including his own Tranquil Forest sect, there were only 2 of them. The other sect was the Burning Sky faction, which was the sworn enemy of the Tranquil Forest sect in the Luxian prefecture. Could it be that Xiao Cheng was one of them? But why would the Burning Sky faction send an yuanying stage expert to Yanlin town for no reason? This did not make sense. Sect leader Guan, I have already said what I need to say. Seeing that sect leader Guan was deep in thought for a long time, Lu Huaishui's expression did not look good. He said coldly, "If you insist on sending a Golden Core full circle disciple to the Zhao clan, then I advise you not to do so. This will damage the reputation of our Chamber of Commerce. Secondly, it will be a wasted sacrifice of a disciple. There is absolutely no need for this. Oh, this is a serious matter. I need to consider it carefully." Sect leader Guan still could not figure out the connection between the yuanying stage expert and the Burning Sky faction. Hearing this, he could only give a vague answer. "All right, then you should consider it carefully. Give me an answer after you have thought it through. I will take my leave first." Seeing that sect leader Guan did not agree after a long time, Lu Huaishui was also a little impatient. He simply stood up, cupped his hands, and left the Tranquil Forest sect with his subordinates. After sending Lu Huaishui off, sect leader Guan did not leave the guest hall. He still sat there, deep in thought. It was not that he did not believe in Lu Huaishui's words. It was just that the highest level that the Tranquil Forest sect could freely dispatch was only a Golden Core full circle disciple. The cultivation of the others was not even worth mentioning. Even if they were to go, they would only be sending themselves to death as cannon fodder. But if he did not send anyone to the Zhao clan, then not only would he not be able to avenge Guan Weikai, if news of this were to spread, the prestige of the sect would definitely be damaged. After all, the Tranquil Forest sect was one of the 2 main sects in the Luxian prefecture. If his disciple was killed for no reason and he, as the sect leader, turned a blind eye to it, he was afraid that he would not be able to stay in the Luxian prefecture anymore. Chapter 1362. After thinking for a long time, sect leader Guan slapped the handle of the chair heavily, as if he had finally made a decision. He stood up and left the room, walking towards a room on the east side of the sect. "Greetings, sect leader." Outside a secret building on the east side of the Tranquil Forest sect, 2 young disciples were guarding the place, chatting about anything and everything. Just as they were chatting excitedly, one of the disciples saw sect leader Guan walking over slowly with a serious expression. He was instantly shocked and hurriedly bowed to him. Sect leader Guan nodded slightly and did not speak, staring at the door with slight hesitation. The 2 disciples looked at each other, feeling a little uneasy. They had been chatting too enthusiastically just now. Would they have angered the sect leader? You too, go in and inform Uncle Mastering that I have something important to discuss with him. Sect leader Guan's hesitation flashed past, and he did not care about the expressions of the two disciples, waved his hand casually and said, But Uncle Mastering is in seclusion. The two disciples immediately looked awkward, and were thinking about how to refuse when they heard sect leader Guan yell impatiently, "Nonsense. Of course I know that he is in seclusion, just go ahead and inform him. If there is any problem, I will take responsibility." Yes, we will go now. The two disciples could not help but shiver, and did not dare to say anything more. One of them hurriedly turned around and ran into the room, while the other waited outside the door with a nervous smile. Not long after, the disciple who went to inform sect leader Guan ran back. He first panted for a while, then said a little awkwardly, reporting to sect leader, "Uncle Mastering asked you to tell us the situation directly, and also said that if it is not too important, do not disturb his cultivation." What the hell, why does it seem like he is not concerned at all? Sect leader Guan muttered gloomily, but did not dare to disobey the order of that Uncle Mastering, so he could only tell the whole story of his disciple Guan Weikai losing his life in the Qin family, as well as the cause and effect. "Alright, please wait for a moment, sect leader." After listening, the disciple nodded and went back to report. But this time, he came back even faster. Standing in front of sect leader Guan, he said in a low voice with a flushed face, "Sect leader, Martial Granduncling, he hasn't made any moves. He doesn't seem to be too concerned about this matter. Do you think we should, forget it? Let's wait for him to come out of seclusion." Seeing that his Uncle Master was not interested at all, sect leader Guan had no other choice. He could not be bothered to wait any longer, so he waved his hand and turned to leave. Anyway, even Martial Uncle didn't care about him, so what was the point of coaxing him? If he had the time, he might as well do something else. Looking at sect leader Guan's back as he left, the two disciples on guard looked at each other. Although they were curious as to how Uncle Guan, who was already at the Golden Core perfection stage, could be killed so easily, as low-level disciples, they naturally did not dare to ask too many questions. They could only continue to stand guard at the entrance. Actually, sect leader Guan had misunderstood Uncle Ing, who was in seclusion. It was not that he was indifferent to the disciples of the faction, but he was about to break through to the original infant stage level 3 and was stuck at an important juncture. Hence, he did not pay much attention to these trivial matters. After all, the most important thing now was to successfully break through and increase his cultivation. However, what was strange was that although sect leader Guan had repeatedly given strict orders to not spread the news, there were still people who spread the news of Guan Weicai's death. And the more it spread, the more exaggerated it became. In the end, in the entire Lucian prefecture, as long as you randomly picked someone on the street, they would be able to narrate the story vividly. There were various versions of the story, and every version could be made into a drama. The rumor was so rampant that it eventually reached the ears of the Burning Sky faction, which had a hostile relationship with the Secluded Forest sect. After hearing the news, the Burning Sky faction naturally would not let go of such a great opportunity. They ridiculed the Secluded Forest sect, and even allowed their disciples to provoke the people of the Secluded Forest sect in Lucian prefecture. They mocked them for being cowards who did not even flinch when their own people were killed. Even sect leader Guan did not escape from the ridicule. The people of the Burning Sky faction openly spoke disrespectfully in Lucian prefecture, and directly accused him of being a sect leader who could not protect his disciples. The Secluded Forest sect would definitely fall and disappear under such people. After such a commotion, the reputation of the Secluded Forest sect plummeted. Many disciples were even more dissatisfied and left the faction to find another way out. Sect leader Guan was neither blind nor deaf. Naturally, he had heard of the rumors in the outside world. In the beginning, he had only wanted to catch the originator of the rumors. Then, after a long time, these unsubstantiated rumors would naturally die down. In the end, he did not expect that the spy in the faction would not be caught, and instead, the rumors would spread more and more. Seeing that the number of disciples in the Secluded Forest sect was decreasing, sect leader Guan could not help but fly into a rage. However, he could not do anything to the person who spread the rumors. He could not possibly catch and kill the person who spread the rumors, right? If that was the case, the people in Lucian Prefecture would basically be killed. Helplessly, sect leader Guan could only go to the small house where Uncle Mastering was in seclusion once again. He told Uncle Mastering about the rumors that were spreading everywhere, as well as the merciless ridicule of the secluded forest sect by the Burning Sky faction. He hoped that this time, Uncle Mastering could come out and take charge of the situation. This time, Uncle Mastering was really persuaded by sect leader Guan. In addition to the fact that he had successfully broken through to the third level of the original infant stage, he decisively left the place where he was in seclusion. In a rage, he led sect leader Guan and a group of disciples, intending to give the Burning Sky faction a show of strength. Although a group of people went to the Burning Sky faction in a mighty manner, Uncle Mastering did not really expect to destroy the faction. The Burning Sky faction and the secluded forest sect were both the top factions in Lucian Prefecture. Their strengths were not too different. Even if there was a large-scale conflict, neither side would be at a great disadvantage. Therefore, the purpose of Uncle Mastering this time was to put on a show, to tell the whole Lucian Prefecture that the secluded forest sect had not declined, and was still one of the leading factions. Those disturbing rumors were fabricated by the people of the Burning Sky faction, and should not be believed easily. Naturally, the Burning Sky faction was well aware of this matter. Therefore, when the people from the secluded forest sect came to denounce them, both sides exchanged a few insults and sent out a few disciples to fight. After both sides had a winner and a loser, the matter ended abruptly. Although the purpose of this trip had been achieved, Uncle Mastering was not willing to let his faction suffer such a huge loss for no reason. Therefore, he shouted loudly outside the door of the Burning Sky faction, saying that he wanted to first go to the Qin clan of Yanlin town to kill the murderer, Xiao Chang, and then come back to settle the score with the people of the Burning Sky faction who spread the rumors. After finishing his words, Uncle Mastering left angrily with a group of people. Chapter 1363. Not long after the people from the Tranquil Forest sect left, a black figure quietly appeared at the back door of the Burning Sky faction. That person vigilantly observed the surroundings for a while, and after making sure there were no strangers nearby, he tiptoed out, and then used his movement skills to quickly run in the direction of Yanlin town. In the Qin family mansion, Qin Xingling was chatting with Xiao Chen and Hong Zhu when a servant suddenly ran in, still looking a little flustered. What's going on? Could it be that someone from the Zhao family has come to provoke us again? Qin Xingling was all too familiar with the servant's appearance, and immediately frowned and asked. No. No. The servant shook his head and reported respectfully, reporting to Master, there is a man dressed in black from Lucian Prefecture outside the door who has come to visit. He claims to be the managing elder of the Burning Sky faction, and also showed his identity token, saying that he has important matters to discuss with Master, so I hurriedly came in to report. The managing elder of the Burning Sky faction? Qin Xingling was slightly startled when he heard this, and suddenly came to a realization. He suddenly stood up and said, could it be that Elder Gong has come? Quickly invite him in. That's right, while you're at it, ask someone to prepare some top-notch snacks, and then brew a pot of top-notch Longjing tea. Remember to use 70% hot water. Qin Xingling first sent the servant to invite Elder Gong, and then hurriedly ordered the other servants to prepare various things. It seemed that he wanted to receive the visitor with the grandest etiquette of the Qin family, and absolutely could not be neglected. Seeing Qin Xingling's nervous look, Xiao Chen felt that it was very interesting, and asked with a slight smile, Old Patriarch Qin, I didn't expect that you would prepare such a grand welcoming ceremony for just one person. It seems that this managing elder is an old friend of yours? It can't be considered an old friend. This old man just had the fate to meet this managing elder once. Qin Xingling touched his nose and answered a little embarrassedly. Qin Xingling thought that Xiao Chen was jealous. After all, when Xiao Chen was invited to the Qin family by Qin Tao Tian, he did not give him such treatment, and instead gave him the cold shoulder, so he felt a little awkward at this time. Oh. Since it's not a firm friendship, then it seems that the Burning Sky faction has a very strong background? Xiao Chen didn't care about Qin Xingling's thoughts, but continued to ask with interest. Qin Xingling explained with a smile, "Exalted deity Xiao, you may not know this, but the Burning Sky faction is one of the two major factions in Luxian Prefecture. The other one is the Tranquil Forest sect. The power of these two factions basically covers the entire Luxian Prefecture. No other faction can compete with them. So that's how it is. I wonder how strong these two sects are." Xiao Chen nodded and asked curiously, "Burning Sky faction or Tranquil Forest sect, which one is stronger?" Although he had been in the immortal cultivation world for quite some time, Xiao Chen was still not very clear about the distribution of power in Luxian Prefecture. Since he had the opportunity, he wanted to understand more about it. "I heard that the strength of these two sects is about the same. Both are quite powerful, which is why they each occupy half of the sect. Neither sect can destroy the other." Qin Xingling rubbed his chin and answered hesitantly. "Then are there any powerful experts in their sects? What level are they?" Xiao Chen was still not satisfied and continued to ask. I don't know about that." Qin Xingling's face fell. He grinned helplessly and said gloomily, "With the Qin clan's current strength, it is not enough to reach that level." Xiao Chen was a little disappointed. Just as he was about to continue speaking, he saw a servant leading a middle-aged man from outside the door. The middle-aged man walked to the center of the hall and stood firmly. He first swept his gaze over everyone present. His gaze lingered on Xiao Chen and Hong Zhu for a while. Then, he bowed slightly to Qin Xingling and said in a clear voice, "Clan Master Qin, I am Gong Xiaoxi, the acting elder of the Burning Sky faction. It is our first time meeting. Nice to meet you. Elder Gong, please don't be so polite." Qin Xingling waved his hands and walked in front of Gong Xiaoxi. He said very eagerly, "It is our great honor to have an elder of such a big faction like you visit our Qin clan as a guest. This Qin is deeply honored. Come, please take a seat." Qin Xingling made an inviting gesture to Gong Xiaoxi and led both Xiao Chen and Gong Xiaoxi to the seat of honor. He then stood respectfully to the side and quietly waited for instructions. He was still a little nervous in his heart. He did not know why Gong Xiaoxi had suddenly come to visit. Clan Master Qin, there is no need to be so restrained. You should also sit down and chat." Gong Xiaoxi looked at Xiao Chen with some surprise and then said to Qin Xingling with a smile. Qin Xingling smiled embarrassedly and found a guest seat to sit down. He only dared to sit on half of the seat and looked very serious and nervous. Seeing that Qin Xingling was very respectful towards Xiao Chen, Gong Xiaoxi guessed that this young man in front of him had a very prominent identity. Therefore, he maintained his smile and asked politely, "This young hero must be the Qin clan's Honorable Xiao Chang, right? You are indeed a promising young man to be able to make the old ghost of the secluded forest sect go to war for you. May I ask, which sect are you a proud disciple of?" You know my name?" Xiao Chen was slightly taken aback. He did not expect that the first thing Gong Xiaoxi asked after his polite greetings was actually about his situation. He could not help but look at him with extreme vigilance. Although Xiao Chen did not feel that this fellow had any hostility towards him, he had always been cooped up in Yanlin town. There should not be many people who knew his name. Where did Gong Xiaoxi hear it from? And who was that old ghost of the secluded forest sect? Why did he go to war for him? Young hero need not be nervous. Do you still remember that old man, Guan Weikai, who was killed by you? He is the Zhao clan's honorable disciple. He is a disciple of the secluded forest sect. Gong Xiaoxi waved his hand and signaled for Xiao Chen to be at ease before explaining. Then you are. The doubt in Xiao Chen's heart did not diminish. A disciple of the secluded forest sect was killed by him. Shouldn't the secluded forest sect come to find trouble with him? Why did the people from the Burning Sky sect come here? Actually, the whole thing is like this. Gong Xiaoxi did not keep him in suspense. With a smile on his face, he briefly described the relationship between the Burning Sky sect and the secluded forest sect. Then, he recounted how the secluded forest sect brought people to provoke the burning sky sect. So that's how it is. I was still puzzled. Xiao Cheng, my husband, you did not advertise, nor did you leave Yanlin town. How did your reputation spread so quickly? It gave me a big fright. Hongzhu, who was sitting on the other side, came to a sudden realization after listening. He curled his lips and said, I thought that there would be many women coming to snatch my husband from me very soon. Scared this baby to death. Chapter 1364. At first, Hongzhu thought that Gong Xiaoxi was here to cause trouble, but after listening to him, he realized that it was not the case. He did not expect that Xiao Chen would attract the Burning Sky faction's managing elder just because he killed a secluded forest sect's consecrator. Xiao Chen shrugged his shoulders indifferently. According to Gong Xiaoxi, the strongest person in the secluded forest sect should be a nascent soul stage expert. Even if he came to the Qin family, he would not be able to cause any trouble. It was not enough to make him feel fear. Young hero Xiao, I have explained everything clearly. Now, let me tell you the purpose of my visit. Gong Xiaoxi's expression turned serious and he said cautiously, the people of the secluded forest sect are narrow-minded and always seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Since that nascent soul stage old man said so, he will definitely come to the Qin family to settle the score with you. Oh, and then? Xiao Chen leaned lazily on the chair and asked casually. Then. Gong Xiaoxi did not expect Xiao Chen's attitude. After being stunned for a while, he continued, I advise you to prepare yourself. If you really can't handle it, run away immediately. Or hide in the Burning Sky faction. That way, he will not be able to do anything to you. Actually, the purpose of Gong Xiaoxi's visit to the Qin clan this time was to remind Xiao Chen to prepare to escape. However, he did not do it for Xiao Chen's own good. He wanted to save Xiao Chen's life. He mainly wanted to see the secluded forest sect become a joke, so that the old man with the surnaming would run away empty-handed. This way, the Burning Sky faction could mercilessly mock them again. If that's the case, then I thank you for your kindness. Xiao Chen first thanked him indifferently. Then, he raised his eyebrows and said casually, but that old man is only a nascent soul stage cultivator. What is there to be afraid of? If he wants to come, he can come. I have no interest in running away. Moreover, if he comes and can't find me, he will still take it out on the Qin family. I might as well wait for him at the Qin family. That's right. What did you say? Gong Xiaoxi thought that Xiao Chen had agreed. When he heard the second half of Xiao Chen's words, his face suddenly changed. He said unhappily, why don't you appreciate it? If you're worried that the old man will make things difficult for the Qin family, I naturally have a way to protect them. Moreover, his main target is you, so what's the point of staying in the Qin family? Gong Xiaoxi thought to himself, this Xiao Cheng looks so young, but why is he so stubborn? Even if you had the ability to kill a golden core stage expert, how could you fight against a nascent soul stage expert? Furthermore, he had been in the nascent soul stage for a very long time. Who knew what stage he had reached by now? Don't you know when you're trying to be brave? Of course it's interesting. Xiao Chen crossed his legs and said leisurely, I'm just waiting for that old fart to come and die. I'll kill one or two anyway. If the people from the Tranquil Forest sect really dare to cause trouble at the Qin clan, I'll make sure that all of them stay here and not a single one of them can go back. Although he had rejected Gong Xiaoxi's suggestion, Xiao Chen did not have the intention to blame this fellow. After all, he had come to warn him out of goodwill. It was just that he did not understand Xiao Chen's strength. That's right, that's right. My husband Xiao Cheng is very powerful. He'll definitely beat up those people from the Tranquil Forest sect. I guarantee that he'll definitely beat them up. Hongzhu also waved his small fists at the side, eager to give it a try. Gong Xiaoxi frowned and thought to himself, why is this person so stubborn? Did he really have to explain everything to her first? If you don't leave, how am I going to laugh at the people from the Tranquil Forest sect? Once he thought of this, Gong Xiaoxi's tone became somewhat unyielding. He ordered coldly, "No, you must leave immediately. Before I came here, I've already told the disciples of the Burning Sky sect that you only need to hide in our Burning Sky sect for a few days and come back after the storm has passed." Husband Xiao Chen, is there something wrong with this person's brain? Why must we go to his sect to take refuge? Hongzhu tilted her head, blinked her eyes, and asked in confusion. I also feel that this person's attitude is a little abnormal. Xiao Chen pinched his chin and nodded in deep thought. He can't have any ulterior motives, right? Is he after money or sex? You've really scared this sister to death. Hongzhu immediately tucked the lapels in front of her chest and put on a stern and inviolable appearance. Although Xiao Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry at Hongzhu's actions, he did not have the time to scold her. Instead, he looked at Gong Xiaoxi with a strange expression and said, "Could it be that the Burning Sky sect and the Tranquil Forest sect have colluded with each other to deceive us and then set up an ambush on the way? How can there be so many kind-hearted people in this day and age? They clearly know that someone wants to deal with me, yet they actually ran over to inform me. Why do I not believe them?" When Gong Xiaoxi heard this, he immediately trembled in anger. Even his face darkened. He slammed the armrest of his chair heavily, pointed at Xiao Chen and shouted angrily, "You! I'm so angry, I came to warn you out of goodwill, but I didn't think that not only would you not appreciate it, you would actually suspect and frame us. How could the Burning Sky sect use such a despicable method to deceive people? It's up to you whether you believe it or not, it's fine if you don't believe it. Immortal Xiao, I also think that you must have misunderstood Elder Gong." Seeing that the two sides were showing signs of breaking down, Qin Xingling hurriedly jumped out to smooth things over and said, "The Burning Sky sect's reputation in Luxian Prefecture is not bad. It is absolutely impossible for them to do such a harmful thing. Why don't you do as Elder Gong said and go to the Burning Sky sect to lie low for a while? Although our Qin family's strength is not good, it should not be a problem for us to deal with them." Qin Xingling was a little flustered. It was not good to offend either side, so he could only try his best to mediate and hope that these two people would not quarrel. "There's really no need for that," Xiao Chen shook his head and said with an indifferent expression, "I don't really suspect the Burning Sky sect. I'm just curious, why does he want me to leave? After all, this matter actually has nothing to do with the Burning Sky sect at all. Why did he suddenly come to get involved in this mess? What's his intention?" Xiao Chen was indeed a little puzzled. He knew that Qin Xingling had good intentions, but the Burning Sky sect did not have a strong relationship with the Qin family in the past. Furthermore, he had only just arrived here, so why would Gong Xiaoxi suddenly come over and ask him to leave the Qin family? Xiao Chen would not believe that there was no ulterior motive behind this at all. Forget it, forget it. Since you're so stubborn, I might as well tell you the truth." Seeing that he was unable to convince Xiao Chen to leave no matter what, Gong Xiaoxi could only wave his hand in a slightly impatient manner. Xiao Chen and Hongzhu both had an, as expected, expression on their faces. Qin Xingling, on the other hand, was stunned. Just now, he had really thought that Elder Gong had come over with good intentions to give the Qin family some pointers. Chapter 1365. But Qin Xingling thought it made sense. In the past, the Burning Sky sect wouldn't even look at a small family in Yanlin town. Why would they suddenly show up and offer help without asking for anything in return? Seeing that everyone was waiting for his answer, Gong Xiaoxi impatiently explained, Our Burning Sky sect wanted to see the Tranquil Forest sect make a fool out of themselves, that's why we let you escape. After they came here to show off, they realized that they couldn't find you. Naturally, they would lose face. At that time, I can humiliate them. It's that simple? You just wanted to embarrass the Tranquil Forest sect and came all the way here to force me and Xiao Chang's husband to escape. This is too childish. Hongzhu blurted out in shock. Hongzhu felt that these people from the Burning Sky sect weren't idiots, right? Just to mess with someone, they actually came all the way here to report. That's ridiculous. The grudge between our two sects has been going on for a long time. It's hard to explain it to you in a short time. Gong Xiaoxi was a little embarrassed. He snorted and looked at Xiao Chen. If you want to stay, then stay. Anyway, your life or death has nothing to do with me. Looking at Gong Xiaoxi's awkward but stubborn look, Xiao Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Could it be that all the sects in the immortal cultivation world were so frivolous that they found pleasure in watching their enemies make a fool of themselves? It's not like they were playing house. Xiao Chen rolled his eyes and said unhurriedly, "Don't you just want to see that nascent soul old man suffer a loss? I can show you something even more fun. I guarantee that the effect is not any worse than your rotten idea. How about it? Do you want to give it a try?" What's more fun? Gong Xiaoxi was stunned. Looking at Xiao Chen's confident look, he couldn't help but warn him with a face full of suspicion, "Young man, don't think that you're amazing just because you killed a golden core stage level 6. With your current strength, if you want to mess with the Tranquil Forest sect, you're basically playing with fire." "Oh, I just want you to see how I'm going to kill that old ghost." Xiao Chen stretched his body and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he casually said. Xiao Chen really wanted to meet some experts of the same level as him. He could also increase his knowledge of the immortal cultivation world. Nascent soul stage fellows were simply not worthy of his attention. "Stop bragging. Do you think that just because the Qin family's patriarch keeps calling you an exalted immortal, you are really an immortal?" Gong Xiaoxi didn't expect Xiao Chen to be so arrogant. He couldn't help but shake his head and reprimand him in disdain. Xiao Chen curled his lips and casually said, "Isn't he just a nascent soul expert? If you want to come, come." Even a dozen of them wouldn't be enough for this exalted immortal to deal with. Moreover, he's only one person. Isn't that just asking for a beating? Gong Xiaoxi was extremely speechless towards Xiao Chen's arrogance. He could only helplessly pat his shoulder and earnestly said, "Young man, I advise you to be more down to earth. As the saying goes, if you don't have a diamond, don't do porcelain work. Now that you're bragging to the heavens, when the time comes, you will definitely die a horrible death. Why don't you believe me?" Xiao Chen lightly pushed away Gong Xiaoxi's palm on his shoulder and lightly smiled. "How about this? I see that you have some strength. As long as you can defeat me, then I will listen to you and leave the Qin clan to seek refuge in your Burning Heavens faction. If you can't defeat me, then you have to agree to one of my conditions. What do you think?" "Yo, I didn't think that you would talk big at such a young age." Gong Xiaoxi looked at Xiao Chen with a surprised expression. Did this brat really think that he was invincible? He actually dared to challenge him. How about it? Do you dare to accept? If you don't dare, then forget it. You can go back by yourself. Xiao Chen laughed as he looked at Gong Xiaoxi. Gong Xiaoxi pondered for a moment. He felt that even though he hadn't reached the nascent soul stage, he was still a half-step nascent soul stage cultivator. There was no reason for him to be unable to defeat this inexperienced young man in front of him. He heavily slammed the table and said, "Fine, I accept your challenge. Why don't you ask me what my condition is?" Xiao Chen laughed and joked, "What if I mentioned something like accepting the Burning Heavens faction or asking you to run naked on the streets? What would you do?" "I will only agree to your condition if you win, and that is impossible." Gong Xiaoxi very confidently waved his hand. He thought for a moment and said, "But if I don't let you mention your condition, I think you definitely won't be satisfied." "Then say it. What condition is it? If it's really an unreasonable condition, then let's not fight. You're just trying to be funny on purpose." "Actually, it's very simple. If I win, your Burning Heavens faction must send someone to the Qin clan to serve as a guest. If the Qin clan is in danger, you must help unconditionally. It's equivalent to you being the Qin clan's backer." Xiao Chen said indifferently. Xiao Chen felt that ever since he came to Yanlin town, the Qin clan had been quite good to him. They did their best to do things. Therefore, he planned to make some benefits for the Qin clan while he was still here. After a period of time, when he left, they would have enough ability to protect themselves and prevent others from taking advantage of their weakness. After Qin Xingling heard this, he was stunned on the spot. Exalted Immortal Shao was too daring, wasn't he? One must know that the Burning Heavens faction was an extremely high and mighty existence. How could they lower themselves and send someone to serve as a guest at the Qin clan? Moreover, with the Qin clan's current financial situation, not to mention hiring a Burning Heavens faction disciple, they probably couldn't even afford to hire Xiao Chang. Don't. Just as Qin Xingling was about to open his mouth to reject this condition, he was interrupted by Gong Xiaoxi. All right, I'll agree to this condition of yours. Then when do we start the competition? He didn't think as much as Qin Xingling. This Xiao Chang was at most a golden core perfection stage cultivator. Asking him to raise conditions was just for fun. Therefore, after listening to Xiao Chang, he nodded his head and agreed without thinking. Let's do it now. Xiao Chen stood up and looked around. This place is too small. Let's go out and compete. Otherwise, if we break the tables and chairs, I'll have to ask you to pay for it with spirit crystals. That would be so embarrassing. Although he said this, Xiao Chen's expression was still very calm. He gestured to Gong Xiaoxi, then led the way to the garden outside. Gong Xiaoxi shook his head. He didn't take Xiao Chen's arrogant words to heart and followed him out of the guest hall. Qin Xingling and Hong Zhu also followed from a distance. One was anxious and fearful, while the other was excited as if he was watching a show. The two of them arrived at an empty space in the Qin clan's garden. Xiao Chen was afraid that they would accidentally injure the Qin clan servants, so he asked Qin Xingling to send away all the unrelated people. Then, he got into position and hooked his finger, indicating that Gong Xiaoxi could make his move. Chapter 1366. Are you ready? Why don't you take out your magic tool? Gong Xiaoxi waited for a while and saw that Xiao Chen was still standing not far away with his bare hands. He couldn't help but ask with a puzzled face. Oh, my magic tool's destructive power is too strong. If I take it out, it's very likely that you'll be killed instantly. If you die, who am I going to look for to fulfill the bet? Xiao Chen rolled his eyes and made up a random excuse. That's why I'm choosing not to use the artifact. Actually, how could Xiao Chen have any magic tool on him? If he had to say, he could only use his flying sword. However, this Gong Xiaoxi didn't seem to have much strength. Xiao Chen reckoned that he wouldn't need to take out his flying sword. Maybe he wouldn't even need to use his vitality to win easily. Gong Xiaoxi thought about it and felt that what Xiao Chen said made sense. He was also afraid that his strength was too high. If he took out his magic tool and accidentally killed Xiao Chen, then it would be very troublesome. Thinking up to this point, Gong Xiaoxi nodded and said, since it's like this, I naturally can't take advantage of you. Then let's not use our magic tools. Otherwise, people will say that I'm bullying the weak and have an unfair advantage in the future. Oh, then you'd better take advantage of me. Xiao Chen grinned and said with a smile, anyway, there are no outsiders around. This matter definitely won't be spread out. Also, I really want to see the true strength of your Burning Sky faction. Just now, Xiao Chen suddenly had an idea. He wanted to research a special magic tool that could be used with the Heaven's Stolen Fortune battle art. However, he didn't know where to start. Now that he had this opportunity, he wanted to see a few other people's magic tools and then try to make one himself. No way, no way. As the managing elder of the Burning Sky faction, how can I casually make a move on a defenseless cultivator? Gong Xiaoxi waved his hand repeatedly. Set after set of principles flowed out like a torrential river. This is completely against our faction's rules. If you're afraid, then take out your magic tool. I won't laugh at you. You're too slow. Xiao Chen felt that Gong Xiaoxi was like Xuanzang who was chanting scriptures. He couldn't help but frown. He couldn't be bothered to listen to Gong Xiaoxi's nonsense. He moved and rushed forward a few steps. He raised his hand and slapped Gong Xiaoxi. Fuck you, our Burning Heaven sect. Holy shit. I.O. Gong Xiaoxi was still talking eloquently, but before he could finish his sentence, he felt a strong force coming at him. Before Gong Xiaoxi could react, he was sent flying by Xiao Chen's slap and landed heavily on the grass not far away. Qin Xingling, who was standing at the side, was dumbfounded. He had thought that with the strength of a top expert like Gong Xiaoxi, he would at least be able to fight to a draw with exalted immortal Xiao. In the end, Gong Xiaoxi had sent him flying with just a casual slap. An exalted immortal is indeed an exalted immortal. Truly extraordinary. Xiao Chang's husband is the best. Xiao Chang hubby is the best. Hong Zhu was so excited that he was like a little fan. His cheeks were red as he shouted. He was just short of raising a bouquet to cheer for Xiao Chang. Gong Xiaoxi lay on the ground for a while before he covered his red cheeks and stood up. Just as he stood up, he felt like he was seeing stars. He shook his head with all his might. After clearing his head a little, he angrily said, "You're too despicable. You actually launched a sneak attack when I wasn't paying attention. This round can't be counted." Then what do you want?" Xiao Chen rubbed his nose in boredom. "If you didn't talk so much, would I have taken the initiative to attack first? By the time you finished speaking, the sky would have turned dark. Let's compete again. But let me say this first. You can't slap my face." Gong Xiaoxi demanded confidently. "How about this? I'll stand still and let you launch a sneak attack as compensation." The corners of Xiao Chen's mouth curled up into a strange arc. He nonchalantly raised his chin and said indifferently, "Since you're so confident, then I won't be polite." Gong Xiaoxi did not refuse this time and shouted in a deep voice. As his voice fell, Gong Xiaoxi's pupils suddenly shrank. His left foot stomped heavily on the ground, flipping over the grass that was the size of a palm. His entire body was like a cheetah as he pounced towards Xiao Chen. If a bystander were to observe carefully, they would discover that Gong Xiaoxi's right palm was gradually covered with a faint layer of yuan qi. Soon after, a gust of wind condensed from his palm and slapped towards Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen crossed his arms and stood motionless in his original spot. He leisurely watched as Gong Xiaoxi got closer and closer. Gong Xiaoxi thought that Xiao Chen could not react in time and had slightly retracted some of his yuan qi when he attacked, afraid that he would accidentally kill him. But just as Gong Xiaoxi's palm was about to land on Xiao Chen's chest, something unexpected happened. He saw that Xiao Chen, who was just in front of him, suddenly turned into a shadow and disappeared without a trace. Gong Xiaoxi turned pale with fright. He hurriedly looked around but found that his surroundings were empty. He could not see Xiao Chen's figure at all. "There's no need to look. I'm behind you." Just as Gong Xiaoxi was feeling very puzzled and kept searching for traces of Xiao Chen, a familiar voice suddenly came from behind him. What followed was a swift sound of wind breaking. Gong Xiaoxi had just wanted to turn around to defend when he was sent flying by Xiao Chen's kick. "Ah!" Gong Xiaoxi couldn't help but let out a blood-curdling scream. His body drew a completely ungraceful parabola, and with a thud, he fiercely fell on the grass. Lying on the grass in a daze, Gong Xiaoxi felt that something was wrong. There was a faint chill in his heart. As the managing elder of the Burning Heavens faction, his strength could be considered to be above average in the sect. Although he had not reached the nascent soul stage, he had already been at the golden core stage for a long time and was infinitely close to the barrier of the nascent soul stage. In the Burning Heavens faction, other than Gong Xiaoxi's father and another great elder, no one else was able to contend against him. In the end, what Gong Xiaoxi did not expect was that he could not even withstand one move from Xiao Chen. Not to mention withstanding one move, he did not even have the time to see Xiao Chen's movements clearly before he was beaten to a pulp. This couldn't help but make Gong Xiaoxi feel incomparably shocked. But then again, Gong Xiaoxi also felt that he had lost a little bit. Previously, he should not have been too conservative and insisted on fighting with others with his fists and feet or magic tools. After all, when he fought with others in the past, he always used magic tools to compete. Fists and feet were not his strong suit at all. If he had known that this brat had some skills, he would not have said those useless words. He would have directly taken out his magic tool and maybe he would have had a chance of winning. Chapter 1367. Hey, do you still want to fight? Xiao Chen strode over and looked down at Gong Xiaoxi, who was lying on the grass. He yawned out of boredom and said, if you don't want to fight, then quickly admit defeat. Anyway, the bet isn't big. Later, you can just ask the Burning Sky sect to pick a gold core stage expert and send him over. The Qin clan will naturally pay the spirit crystals and will definitely not treat you unfairly. Of course I have to continue fighting. I was only warming up just now. I haven't even used my real skills yet, how can I admit defeat like this? Don't bluff. Gong Xiaoxi gritted his teeth and stood up, saying hatefully. Then hurry up. Xiao Chen looked at the sky and said helplessly, if you don't fight now, we can go back to eat soon. Gong Xiaoxi's face was a little ugly. He directly took out a scarlet bead from his chest and raised it high in his hand. He immediately activated his mental cultivation method and said with a solemn face, since you are unwilling to take out your artifact no matter what, then I won't be polite. Although the bead in his hand looked ordinary, it was very powerful on the inside. It was a treasure passed down from the Burning Sky sect since ancient times, and it was also Gong Xiaoxi's special artifact. This bead was called the Scarlet Flame Bead. Not only could it strengthen the fire attribute martial skills of the wielder, it could also allow the wielder to resist a certain amount of fire damage. It was just that the effect wasn't that obvious. I am doing this to show my true strength, not to bully you. Don't. Gong Xiaoxi was still chattering there. Xiao Chen, on the other hand, was interested in the artifact that Gong Xiaoxi took out with great difficulty. He took 2 steps forward and snatched the scarlet bead, carefully examining it. According to Xiao Chen's observation, there were some vague strange patterns on the bead. In the middle of the bead, there was a cluster of flames that constantly jumped. When held in his hand, it would emit a slight burning sensation. He could feel a trace of vitality fluctuation, but it wasn't too obvious and there was nothing special about it. After looking at it for a while, Xiao Chen couldn't figure out anything. He held the scarlet flame bead in his hand and said, "Is this thing your artifact? It looks quite ordinary and doesn't give off a feeling of greatness at all. Do you have any other magic tools? Take it out for me to see." Gong Xiaoxi looked at his empty hands and couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment before reacting. This was because a normal cultivator wouldn't try to snatch the other party's magic tool before understanding its usage. He couldn't help but shout in exasperation, "You! How can you snatch my scarlet flame bead so casually? Give it back to me." While shouting, Gong Xiaoxi rushed over, trying to snatch his Dharma artifact back from Xiao Chen. Seeing this, Xiao Chen casually tossed the scarlet bead into the air. Then, he tilted his body slightly and easily dodged Gong Xiaoxi's pounce. Then, he caught the slowly falling bead and said with a smile, "So this thing is called the Scarlet Flame Bead. Don't be so stingy. I'm just lending it to you for research. I won't do anything to it. Who knows, it might be beneficial to you after I figure something out. Only a ghost would believe what you said." Gong Xiaoxi staggered and almost fell again. After standing firmly with great difficulty, he glared at Xiao Chen and said angrily, "If you don't want to give it to me, then don't give it to me. Even if you don't want to give it to me, I still have a way to get my scarlet flame bead back." As soon as he finished speaking, Gong Xiaoxi clenched his hands tightly and released his mental strength to control his own magic tool. His mouth was chanting an incantation in an attempt to make the scarlet flame bead return to his hands. Feeling a faint aura covering the scarlet flame bead, Xiao Chen looked at Gong Xiaoxi's posture with great interest. Then, he casually flicked his fingers and released his mental strength at the same time. However, the result was obvious. Xiao Chen's mental strength was several times stronger than Gong Xiaoxi's. That power wrapped the entire scarlet flame bead and instantly cut off the connection between Gong Xiaoxi and the scarlet flame bead. How is this possible? Gong Xiaoxi realized that the scarlet flame bead was actually not moving in Xiao Chen's hands, and the mental strength that he released was directly swallowed by another more ferocious mental strength. Gong Xiaoxi's expression at this time was already shocked to the limit. His mouth was wide open and he was completely dumbfounded. He only said a word after a long time. Although he couldn't see Xiao Chen's true level, that ferocious mental strength had already explained everything. Gong Xiaoxi only realized at this time how powerful the seemingly harmless young man in front of him was. He actually struggled for a long time over whether or not to use magic tools. He didn't expect that the other party didn't care what you used. Even if you used 3 to 5 magic tools, the other party would still take care of you. Alright, don't be so surprised. I have no interest in this broken thing. Xiao Chen shrugged his shoulders. He thought that Gong Xiaoxi was feeling distressed about his scarlet flame bead. He didn't have much interest in this kind of low-grade magic tool, so he casually threw the scarlet flame bead into the pocket of Gong Xiaoxi's shirt. Gong Xiaoxi could feel his pocket sink, and then a weak burning sensation came through his clothes. This meant that the scarlet flame bead had returned to his body. However, Gong Xiaoxi, who should have been happy, didn't have any reaction at this moment. He still looked at Xiao Chen with a face full of shock. He couldn't come back to his senses at all. A sentence kept circling in his heart: I've met a great immortal. Seeing Gong Xiaoxi's expression, Xiao Chen could roughly guess what was going on. He put his hands behind his back and said with a smile, since you already know my strength, you should be able to admit defeat now, right? Wow. Husband Xiao Chang is really amazing. You won so easily. I really didn't make a mistake. Hubby is the best. Hong Zhu cheered with a face full of joy. Her proud look made it seem as if she had won this competition. Young hero Xiao. No, exalted immortal. Exalted immortal Xiao, I admit defeat. You really didn't lie to me. To have such a cultivation at such a young age, you are indeed extraordinary. Gong Xiaoxi nodded his head in admiration. He cupped his fists and bowed to Xiao Chen. Then, Xiao Chen was about to mention the bet, but Gong Xiaoxi already knew what he was going to say. He immediately waved his hand and said with emotion, don't worry. I, Gong Xiaoxi, am not someone who can't afford to lose. I will definitely not renege on the conditions that I have to fulfill. In the future, I will stay in the Qin family as a consecrator. Furthermore, all the resources and disciples of the Burning Heavens sect can be used by you as you please. Gong Xiaoxi's initial disdain towards Xiao Chen turned to caution, and then to admiration. Although he couldn't see through Xiao Chen's level, based on his intuition, he should have already reached the nascent soul paragon stage. Chapter 1368. Although Luxian Prefecture was vast and had a large number of immortal cultivators, most of them were Qi refinement stage and foundation building stage beginner immortal cultivators. As long as someone reached the gold core stage, that person would have a considerable right to speak in his own family and even in the town. If he cultivated to the 5th or 6th level of the gold core stage, then no matter who saw him, they would be respectful to him, and he would become a fragrant cake that all the major forces would fight over. Even in the Tranquil Forest sect and the Burning Sky faction, cultivators at the later stages of the Golden Core stage were rare. Most of them would take up certain positions, such as deacon elders or masters who would guide beginner disciples. As for nascent soul stage cultivators, they were even more rare. Even if all the cultivators from the Secluded Forest sect and the Burning Sky faction were gathered together, including those masters and grandmasters who were in seclusion, there might not be more than 10 of them who had reached the nascent soul stage. Moreover, among these 10 people, most of them had just entered the original infant stage. At most, they were at the 3rd or 4th level of the original infant stage. For example, Gong Xiaoxi had been stuck at the Golden Core full circle for so long and was unable to break through. It was clear how difficult it was to break through from the Golden Core stage to the original infant stage. That was why Gong Xiaoxi was so respectful to Xiao Chen. In his eyes, original infant stage cultivators were people he had never seen or heard of before. For such a great deity who was above the clouds, he would even be willing to call Shao Chen a deity who had descended from the heavens, not to mention a deity. Ah. You came to the Qin clan to be a consecrator? Shao Chen looked at Gong Xiaoxi with surprise and waved his hand, saying, forget it. You look like a small leader of the Burning Sky faction. I reckon that as a consecrator, you will need to spend a lot of spiritual crystals. The Qin clan is not a particularly big clan now, so I reckon that they will not be able to afford it for now. You can just send a golden core stage cultivator who earns 1 spiritual crystal a year over here. Although Shao Chen knew that if Gong Xiaoxi were to be a consecrator of the Qin family, then this amount would be enough for the Qin family to become the dragon head of Yanlin town in one leap, he also understood the Qin family's present situation. Although he had caused trouble for the Zhao clan several times, causing the Qin clan's business to become more prosperous than before, it was still a bit difficult to hire a half-step nascent soul stage expert all of a sudden. Furthermore, the reason why he made this bet with Gong Xiaoxi was because he couldn't stay in the Qin clan for a long period of time. Therefore, he thought that he should at least help the Qin clan rope in some experts from the Burning Sky faction to hold the fort. Only then would he be able to leave with peace of mind. After all, Qin Xingling had helped him out quite a bit. He had to repay this kindness. If he were to pull a half-step nascent soul cultivator over to the Qin clan and cause them to go bankrupt, that would be repaying kindness with enmity. Don't. Immortal Shao, you're treating me like an outsider. Gong Xiaoxi immediately shook his head. Then, with a face full of righteousness, he added, no matter how valuable the spirit crystals are, they are only worldly possessions. As long as I can be an assistant to Immortal Shao, I don't mind even if you don't give me the spirit crystals. Gong Xiaoxi wasn't an idiot. After being a deacon elder for so many years, he had some ideas of his own when it came to judging a matter. Being able to curry favor with Immortal Shao was, of course, much better than taking a few spirit crystals. Between the two, he naturally knew how to weigh the pros and cons. How can that be? Qin Xingling, who was standing at the side, exclaimed. Seeing that both Shao Chen and Gong Xiaoxi had turned their gazes over, Qin Xingling hesitated for a moment and said carefully, Elder Gong, you're the deacon elder of the Burning Sky faction. How can I let you work here for free? How about this, I'll give you a portion of the spirit crystals as a down payment. After a while, when the Qin clan's business improves, I'll pay the rest. What do you think? From Qin Xingling's point of view, to be able to invite an elder of the Burning Sky faction to be a consecrator was something that many clans could only dream of. He didn't expect that today, with just one sentence from Shao Chen, he could actually make this originally impossible wish come true. It was simply too incredible. Qin Xingling still felt like he was in a dream. He couldn't believe that everything that had happened was real. Old Master Qin, you don't have to say anything more. Since I've already made up my mind, I won't take a single spirit crystal from the Qin clan. As long as I can be of service to exalted Immortal Shao, everything else does not matter. Gong Xiaoxi resolutely rejected Qin Xingling's proposal. He didn't care about the spirit crystals at all. If he could follow Shao Chen, the benefits he could obtain would definitely be much more precious than the spirit crystals. You really know how to take advantage of others. Shao Chen could naturally guess Gong Xiaoxi's thoughts. However, he could also understand this fellow's thoughts. He patted him on the shoulder, nodded and said, that's fine too. Then you can stay and mingle with me. However, I'll say this in advance. Sometimes, I'll travel around and gain experience. When I'm back, if there's a chance, I'll give you some pointers. In short, I won't treat you badly. Then I'll thank Immortal Shao in advance. Gong Xiaoxi nodded repeatedly. His face was smiling like a chrysanthemum. He was extremely happy. He had foreshadowed so much in the beginning, all for this sentence. He was thinking about how to bring it up tactfully so that he would not appear too greedy and would not put the exalted immortal in a difficult position. Just as he was pondering, exalted Immortal Shao actually took the initiative to speak up. Gong Xiaoxi finally relaxed. Two esteemed masters, it's getting late. This Qin has prepared a small banquet in the residence. Let's not stand outside. Let's go in and eat while we talk. Qin Xingling saw that the two had come to an agreement and didn't say anything else. He raised his head to look at the sky and respectfully gestured for Xiao Chen and Gong Xiaoxi to enter the parlor. Xiao Chen nodded and walked over to hold Hongzhu's hand. He followed Qin Xingling into the parlor and casually sat down on the main seat. However, even if he didn't sit, Patriarch Qin and Gong Xiaoxi wouldn't have allowed him to sit on the guest seat. After Hongzhu sat down beside Xiao Chen, Gong Xiaoxi also followed closely behind. He sat down beside Qin Xingling and chatted amiably with him. Qin Xingling felt extremely flattered. After all, the acting elder of the Burning Heavens faction, who was previously out of his reach, had not only become his family's free tribute, but also sat down with him to enjoy a banquet and chat warmly. This was something that he didn't even dare to imagine. Gong Xiaoxi was also very happy in his heart because Xiao Chen had already promised to give him pointers. Even if he had to travel around and it was uncertain when he would return, this was equivalent to having something to look forward to. Chapter 1369. It must be known that Gong Xiaoxi had been stuck at the half-step nascent soul stage for many years. He had always been looking for an opportunity to break through, but he had never been able to do so. As time went by, it was inevitable that an obsession would grow in his heart. After all, for high-level cultivators, time no longer had any meaning. Most cultivators could live for hundreds of years as long as they were not killed by others, and those with high levels could live even longer. As time passed, situations like Gong Xiaoxi's that were difficult to break through would naturally occur. No matter how hard he tried, he would not be able to find a suitable way to advance. Even if he meditated in seclusion for a long time, it would not necessarily have any effect. The best way was to meet a famous teacher who could give him some guidance. Only then would he have a chance to smoothly break through the barrier. However, the cultivation world was incomparably vast, and high-level cultivators were few and far between. The probability of meeting one was even smaller, and even if he did meet one, it was extremely difficult to persuade them to give him some guidance. Therefore, after Gong Xiaoxi received Xiao Chen's promise, he was naturally elated. After the banquet ended, Qin Xingling prepared a room for Gong Xiaoxi to use, while Xiao Chen and Hongzhu strolled to their own rooms. Little brother Xiao Chen, we've been dual cultivating for several days, haven't we? On a quiet and deep path, Hongzhu leaned on Xiao Chen's body and complained with a face full of dissatisfaction, "Why am I still only at the first level of the foundation establishment stage? Is it because you haven't shown me your true level? Is that why I'm breaking through so slowly? Have you become stupid from drinking too much?" Xiao Chen lightly knocked on Hongzhu's head and snappily said, "It's only been a few days. You've already advanced from the first level of the qi condensation stage to the first level of the foundation establishment stage. You've broken through an entire stage, and your cultivation speed is even faster than mine. You're actually not satisfied with such a rapid speed?" Hongzhu pursed his lips and pinched Xiao Chen's nose. "Of course I'm not satisfied. Tell me the truth, did you deliberately suppress my cultivation progress? Are you afraid that you'll lose face after I catch up to you?" Xiao Chen rolled his eyes to the back of his head and explained helplessly, "What nonsense are you talking about? I can't wait to have an expert at the same level as me by my side to help me. If you insist that there's a problem, then you can only blame yourself for your poor aptitude, which is why your cultivation progress is so slow." In fact, Xiao Chen was also a little puzzled. In the past, when he was dual cultivating with Qing Menjing and the other girls in the martial arts world, their leveling speed was very fast. Why did they slow down when they were dual cultivating with Hongzhu in the immortal cultivation world? At this moment, the two of them had already arrived outside their room. Xiao Chen pushed open the door and waited for Hongzhu to enter before entering the room and closing the door. Hongzhu turned around, made a face at Xiao Chen, and said angrily, "Look at what you're saying. I am the most powerful cultivation genius in the entire Hong family apart from Hong Yan. It's clearly because you're not doing your best that my cultivation progress is delayed. You actually have the nerve to blame me, you little rascal. Xiao Chen walked to the table and poured a cup of tea. He casually drank it and shrugged. Fine, if you insist on thinking that way, then there's nothing I can do. You. Hongzhu immediately pouted and snorted angrily. You've made me angry. I'm not dual cultivating tonight, so don't even think about seeing this big sister's proud figure. Is that so? Then it's up to you. I'll go cultivate on my own. Xiao Chen blinked innocently. He put down the cup of tea and walked to the sofa. He sat down and circulated his mental cultivation method, preparing to start cultivating. Due to the consecutive days of dual cultivating, Xiao Chen felt that he had vaguely touched the barrier of profound ascension stage level 7. Therefore, he was also looking for an opportunity to break through. Since Hongzhu was unwilling to dual cultivate, then cultivating on his own would be the same. Xiao Chen. Hongzhu was about to explode from anger at the unromantic slow-witted Xiao Chen. She angrily stamped her feet and simply walked over to sit on Xiao Chen's lap. She hugged his neck with both hands and shook it non-stop as she angrily shouted, "No. If you don't help me, this big sister, advance, then I will never let you cultivate properly." Xiao Chen sensed Hongzhu's orchid-like breath, as well as the faint fragrance of wine on her body, as well as the rich fragrance of the combination of the two, as well as the surging waves that would rub against his arm from time to time. He couldn't help but feel a little restless. However, after a moment of distraction, Xiao Chen quickly used Yuan Qi to suppress his mind and helplessly said, "You don't want to dual cultivate, but you also won't let me cultivate. Little Hongzhu, what are you trying to do? He, why don't we do that? In any case, the night is long, and we have nothing to do. We have to find something to do, right?" Hongzhu narrowed her eyes and said with a charming face, "Also, you see, we are husband and wife in name, but not husband and wife in reality. No matter how you look at it, this doesn't make sense, does it?" After saying that, Hongzhu even mischievously blew a breath of air into Xiao Chen's ear. She stared at Xiao Chen with her alluring eyes that could make men go crazy for her. Cough, cough. Xiao Chen coughed a few times and helplessly said, "It seems that you really have drunk too much. Not only are we not husband and wife in name, it is even more impossible for us to be husband and wife in reality. Right now, we are just playing around in the Qin residence. You couldn't have taken it seriously, right?" Xiao Chen had always maintained a respectful distance from this little witch, Hongzhu. He had been teased by her several times in the past. If he took it seriously and she turned around and said that it was just a joke, wouldn't that make him look very stupid? Moreover, although Xiao Chen did not dislike Hongzhu, it was definitely not to the extent that he liked her so much that he could not let go of her. Therefore, he had a certain level of resistance towards her teasing and was able to keep a safe distance. "Are you sure you're telling the truth? Big sister, I have discovered that your eyes haven't been very honest these past few days when we were dual cultivating. You often stared lecherously at my breasts and thighs. Do you dare to say that you didn't have any strange thoughts in your head at that time?" Hongzhu puffed out her chest and deliberately rubbed her proud parts against Xiao Chen's body a few times as she taunted him with a smile. About that." Xiao Chen rubbed his nose, finally somewhat speechless. Because Xiao Chen had to admit that he had indeed taken a few glances when they were dual cultivating. However, at that time, he did not have any improper thoughts. He had only inadvertently caught a glimpse and then looked at it purely from the perspective of appreciation. He did not expect that Hongzhu's eyesight would be so good. The lights in the room were clearly not turned on, but she was actually able to see his eyes clearly. Most likely, after becoming a cultivator, her six senses had been strengthened, so her eyesight had also become better. Chapter 1370. When Hongzhu saw that Xiao Chen had finally broken through, his indifferent expression turning into a somewhat embarrassed expression, there was no need to mention how happy Hongzhu was. "Look at you, you stinking brat. You clearly want to do that, so why are you still pretending?" Striking while the iron was hot, Hongzhu leaned against Xiao Chen's shoulder and giggled, "All right, all right. Don't be like this and that, since this big sister doesn't mind. Why are you still being so shy? Why don't we take advantage of tonight's rare beautiful scenery and do what we need to do? What we need to do? I don't know what you're talking about. Hearing Hong Zhu's gentle and enchanting voice, Xiaochen felt as if there was a feather tickling the tip of his heart, causing it to itch unbearably. Xiaochen did his best to control the fire of lust in his body, but he could still feel a nefarious fire gradually rising in his lower abdomen. He suddenly realized that Hong Zhu might have used some kind of seductive technique, otherwise he would not have been able to let his imagination run wild so easily. He could not help but feel that this was not good, and felt extremely helpless towards this maddening little demoness. You're still playing dumb. Hong Zhu glanced at Xiaochen with her seductive eyes, then fiercely pinched the tender flesh on his waist, and said in a soft, almost inaudible voice, "It's what you and Qing Menjing often do. You're such a strange person. If it was any other man in this situation, they would have already become impatient. I didn't think that you would actually be able to restrain yourself. You're simply a weirdo." "You're the weirdo, Qing Menjing, and I have never done that kind of thing you're talking about. She's not that casual." Hearing Hong Zhu's words, Qing Menjing's figure suddenly appeared in Xiao Chen's mind, causing his entire body to tremble, the fire of lust completely extinguished, and he lightly pushed Hong Zhu away. After hearing Xiao Chen's words and being pushed away, Hong Zhu was slightly taken aback, but she did not have the time to be angry, instead asking in an extremely shocked voice, "Ah? Is this for real? You and Menjing have never done that?" "Of course it's true. There's no profit in lying to you." Xiaochen rolled his eyes at Hong Zhu as he thought to himself, "I wonder how the eldest miss is doing right now. Is the environment she's in safe or not?" Now, Xiaochen could only hope that she could be like him and learn to adapt to the situation. If she could meet a kind-hearted person like Qin Xingling, then at least she could temporarily have a place to stay. How is that possible? Isn't she your fiancé? Hong Zhu could not understand the way Xiaochen and Qing Menjing got along. He exclaimed in astonishment, "Besides, this era is no longer a feudal society. I see many primary and secondary school students in the secular world are in love, but you're still so conservative. This is our own choice." Xiaochen was too lazy to extend this question further, so he waved his hand and said. Hong Zhu, however, was still unwilling to let the matter drop. Somewhat gossipy, he asked, "Then you, little Hong Zhu?" Without waiting for Hong Zhu to finish speaking, Xiaochen interrupted him. He looked into Hong Zhu's eyes and said with a solemn expression, "If the Qin family is still unable to find any news about Qing Menjing and the others after a period of time, I plan to go to Luxian Prefecture to try my luck. When that time comes, you should stay with the Qin family, so that you won't have to follow me everywhere. If there's any danger, I definitely won't agree." Before Xiaochen could finish speaking, Hong Zhu shook his head like a rattle drum and directly rejected Xiaochen's suggestion. "Don't even think about leaving this big sister alone in the Qin family while you run off to the outside world to enjoy yourself. That's not what I meant." Xiaochen smiled bitterly as he rubbed his nose. Why did this Hong Zhu always think of such nonsense? Wasn't he just afraid that he wouldn't be able to take care of her if there were any unpredictable dangers? What if there were any problems? Hong Zhu, who had originally been pushed away by Xiaochen, once again came over and grabbed Xiaochen's clothes. He stared at Xiaochen and warned him word by word, "Little brother Xiaochen, you better listen to me. I don't care what you mean. Either we go to Luxian Prefecture together, or you don't have to think about going. I'll definitely pester you every day and won't let you leave my sight, humph. Alright, let's go together." Seeing Hong Zhu gnashing his teeth in anger, Xiaochen could only smile helplessly and agree to it. Although the people he had encountered so far were all weak chickens, once they left Yanlin town, it would be hard to say. Xiaochen reckoned that he could encounter cultivators of the profound ascension stage or even higher level at any time. Since Hong Zhu wanted to stay by his side, if he encountered a situation that he could not handle, he could only choose to escape with his flying sword. That's more like it. Hearing that Xiaochen had finally agreed, Hongzhu happily kissed him on the cheek and nodded her head in satisfaction. In fact, although Hongzhu played it down on the surface, she was actually quite afraid that Xiao Chen would leave her. After all, she was a stranger in the cultivation world, and the only man she could rely on was Xiao Chen. Therefore, she naturally wanted to hold on tightly to this one and only straw. All right, then it's settled. If you don't want to dual cultivate, then go to sleep. I'm going to start cultivating. Xiao Chen could also vaguely understand Hongzhu's feelings. Without saying anything else, he lightly patted her little head and casually changed the topic. Who told you that I don't want to dual cultivate? Big sister, I will take off my clothes right now. Just you wait. Hongzhu pouted coquettishly. She immediately stood up and ran to turn off the light. Then, she quickly stripped herself naked and returned to Xiao Chen's side with a blushing face. Xiao Chen shook his head in exasperation and amusement. He really had to give it to this little girl. Couldn't she have said that they were going to dual cultivate right from the start? Why did she have to come up with so many tricks? If a girl became Sundra, there was really no way to deal with her. However, Xiao Chen naturally would not say anything to her. After Hongzhu sat down, the two of them began to enter a state of dual cultivation. In the midst of meditation, a thought suddenly emerged in Xiao Chen's mind. Could it be that the progress of Hongzhu's cultivation was so slow because of the mental cultivation method she was currently using? When he passed on the Heaven's Stolen Fortune battle technique to Hongzhu, he did not ask the Elder Heaven Ancestor in advance. He did not know if it was because this mental cultivation method was not suitable for Hongzhu, which was why she was currently stuck at the first level of the foundation establishment stage. However, even if this was the case, Xiao Chen had no way to help Hongzhu obtain another mental cultivation method from the cultivation world. After all, this thing was a treasure that all the major sects and clans treated as a secret treasure and would not casually pass it on to outsiders. Even if Gong Xiaoxi was extremely fawning over him, Xiao Chen had no way to explain the cause and effect of this matter to him in detail. It was even more inconvenient for him to ask for the mental cultivation method of the sect. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.